Hey welders, ready to upgrade your gear and save some serious dough in the process? The Miller Build with Blue Savings and Rebate Program has you covered. Find amazing deals and cashback rebates on a wide range of Miller products, from welders to plasma cutters and everything in between, all backed by our 3-year warranty. Don't let this opportunity pass you by. Take advantage of the Miller Build with Blue program now. Visit us online or stop by your nearest Miller distributor today to start saving.
The Strange Motion Away podcast. I'm your host, Tim Strange, along with my co-host,
Carrie Strange.
Tonight, we have another great guest. I say this every time, but all of our guests are really awesome. Arguably one of the first to build what is called a Pro Street with a second-gen Nova, and he built the famous Cheese Whiz 55 that was Hot Rod Magazine Car of the Year in 1988. And I have some props here tonight. I have some props of I got it. Yeah.
Forward to camera.
And driven across country with Hot Rod Magazine riding shotgun, and ripped off a 10-second quarter mile after the drive. He's still building amazing cars out of his, listen up, two-stall garage. Two-stall garage. I've been there. I've witnessed it. And right behind his house, most hot rod builders I know, and especially guys around my age, they name this guy as a huge influence for why they build certain styles or look for certain details. Welcome, tonight's guest, Scott Sullivan.
Thank you, Tim and Carrie.
That was quite the intro there. So we'll get to some of my props here in a little bit. We want to start back to little Scotty Sullivan running around the neighborhood in Ohio.
5 years old. That's the number, 5 years old.
Is that when you remember seeing your first hot rod influence?
I had neighbors across the street from me. They were like 3 or 4 doors down. And God, I'd have to count the kids. 8 kids, I think, something crazy. But the oldest son bought a new 1960 Impala and put chrome reverse on it and baby moons. And I can remember, again, I'm telling my age, I can remember standing on the sidewalk watching him wash that car when I was 5. Oh. And I mean, that memory is burnt into my brain. Red interior. But, and I'll have to figure out how to unfold this in chronological order because some of it's funny. So that his name was Jack Yaley, and Jack went off to Vietnam. So the next younger brother, Mike Yaley, was the influence of my life, the motorhead. And when Jack went, I still hung out down there, I guess because of the car. But Mike had a 57 Ford Custom 300, and it was serious hot rod for the day. And I started following him around at a really, really young age. And it's funny. I mean, he literally took me under his wing as his little brother and taught me pretty much everything I know as far as body paint, work ethic, mechanical stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the stories I like to tell is why I was saying about the chronological thing. When Jack was coming home from Vietnam, he wrote the family or whatever, or somehow or another. Anyway, Mike said to me one day, Jack's coming home, and he ordered a new 65 Dodge 426 Street Hemi.
Wow.
And he also ordered a new 65 Corvair Spider. And whichever car comes in first, that's the one he's going to take. And the Corvair came in, and I was 9 or 10. I threw the biggest temper tantrum. What do you mean he's not taking the Hemi?
Right.
But anyway, so I grew up, like I say, under Mike Yaley's wing. I started painting motorcycles for his friends when I was probably 12 or 13. Again, I have to think in order. I think I probably painted Tom Nelson's motorcycle when I was 12, and they bought me a Binks airbrush, and I painted the motorcycle. Back then, would be comparable to House of Colors now paint was Metal Flake brand. Mm-hmm. And I painted, it was a Triumph Bonneville, and I painted it white pearl and painted flames on it in purple and red and blue, just kind of swirl around, faded, and then acetylene torch in the flames, and then wrote Triumph on the gas tank and variegated red gold leaf lettering, outlined it with model paint. But that was, like I said, my first experience down there with paint. And then I ended up painting a motorcycle for a guy when I was a freshman in high school, at school. And let me think. We built, when I turned 15, my mother, in her infinite wisdom, was determined for me to not drive. And so her idea, she bought me a 64 Volkswagen that the motor was blown up, and $50. And she figured that would keep me out of the car. You know, I had to get the car running. So I forget what the number was. It was something stupid. 9 months later, I entered the local ISCA show and won first place in my class. So, and I mean, I bought I think 1200 and something cc scat motor. I mean, I had it running in no time. I had it run before I was 16. But once again, with Mike's guidance, that was also white pearl, candy colors. Every painting trick of the day was all over it. Flared fenders, SS Kragers, and that was my first car. And then
so at that time, that was your first car. Knowing some people don't know, you're a Midwestern guy, so Dayton, Ohio. Did you have a winter beater that you drove in the crappy roads like I did living in Illinois? You go to the junkyard, buy an $800 car.
Right. No, not with that car. I mean, that car got driven in the snow, et cetera, et cetera. I remember driving it to high school and doing creative parking. I parked it somewhere where I wasn't supposed to. And I think I drove it my junior and senior year. And so they called me out on it or whatever, but ultimately ended up letting me park where I had chosen, you know, because of the car. But
see, I would do that too. I drove a 64 Chevelle in high school in the summertime, and I would always park in one certain place and a couple places so nobody parked around me. And I remember, and I was always one of the last ones to get there. Well, this girl, year or two older than me, got there late for school and pulled in right next to me and flung her door open and gave me a door. It was the banker's daughter.
Of course.
Yep. So I told him that he should have to pay for my car.
Yeah, I would think.
Basically told me where to go. So, yeah.
I didn't have a special parking place for my Chevette.
Nobody cared. Your car looked like a big door ding, Carrie. Yeah.
It was a door ding. And then to continue with that just a little bit further. So after, I think a year out of high school, I traded that Volkswagen for a 1971 Dodge Demon 344 speed. The car was 3 years old. I traded.
So what year did you graduate high school?
73.
Okay.
I wasn't born yet.
I was 2.
Yeah, in 74. Yeah, I know. I didn't notice you guys around much. So off from there. And actually, and you bring up, and we can go on and on about the Pro Street thing, because personally, I think it's hilarious. You know, on the Pro Street pages on the internet, almost weekly, somebody posts who built the first Pro Street car.
Mm-hmm. So you built that first, your Nova. You weren't very old when you built that car, then, were you?
22.
Wow.
Yeah. And that in itself, I mean, like I say, you want to touch on who built the first. And I tell you what, every time, no matter how many times it's posted, it's a 400 comment, you know, chest pounding. I had an uncle that had a Conestoga wagon back in 1880 that had dual wheels on it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. But because it ultimately turns into who had the first tubbed car on the street.
Yeah, in my area, I mean, I grew up luckily around a big hot rod scene, as you did in Dayton, Ohio. Huge hot rod scene up there. And there was always a couple guys that's like, they had like a super gas, super comp, or, you know, a sportsman car that was mini tubbed, had slicks on it, and they might have drove it if they lived in the town where the cruise night was. They might have drove it to the cruise night, but
I've even
that's,
said
to me, a race car getting driven on the street. That's not a
exactly.
Yeah.
I've said before, it's like, I'll tell you who drove the first pro street car. It's the guy that had a tub car, and his tow vehicle or his trailer broke down on the way to the drag strip.
Exactly. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
But I like talking about the Chevy too, and pro street in general a little bit, because how it took a life of its own. And sometimes I want to say I don't approve, but to each his own. The biggest thing is that people are so rabid about everything. You know, I've seen people, pro street car is a pro stock car with license plates. Well, there weren't any superchargers on pro stock cars, as best I know. And my Chevy 2 in particular was ultimately just everything that I'd seen as a child at the drag strip, which incidentally, Mike Haley took me to the drag strip every weekend, all of my, early years, took me to the U.S. Nationals. I mean, I had a lot of drag race influence, which is odd that I nor Mike were interested in actually drag racing. It just looked like a big money pit, but it sure was fun to watch. And so all of those influences from when I was young, gassers, superchargers, and then, when pro stock people started, building pro stock cars that were tubbed, oh my God, I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I just combined them all to make what my philosophy is today. You want something that just looks bad. It looks like it'll eat you. It's just got to look badass. And that's what thrills me.
So yeah, so where did you debut the Blue Nova? And that car's still around. Ron, right? Ron is his first name.
Ionati in Coventry, Rhode Island, and he's had a couple pro mods and stuff as well.
Yeah.
But I debuted it at the Street Machine Nationals in 1979.
And where was the Nats then?
Pardon me?
Where was the Nationals then? It wasn't in DuQuoin yet then, right?
No, it was in Indianapolis.
Okay. I never went when it was in Indy.
Yeah. Well, and actually, let's back up on that a little bit. So I grew up actually in the house that I live in now, and there was no garage. And when I told you I traded for that Dodge Demon, and again, think about the time chronologically. When I traded for that Dodge Demon, I didn't have a garage, and I traded. It was a plum crazy Demon, and I traded for it on a Friday night. And Sunday night, that car was in every piece it would come, and all the paint was stripped off of it to bare metal, and it was sitting in my driveway. And that's when I learned about metal prep. Bare metal, and I did all the body work on it, and I primered it in lacquer primer, and ended up painting it down at Mike's house, and the entire car got these blisters on it like poison ivy. And the paint store said, "Yep, that's rust. Come up through the primer." But I remember having that Demon in my driveway that ended between the two houses, mine and the neighbors, having a giant piece of plastic over it, having a salamander heater blowing in from the front to the rear, and trouble lights underneath there, and it being 9 degrees out. And I was trying to figure out how to tub it. And that was, again, 74, 75, something early 75.
See, I did that too. I mean, I luckily, when I started working on my stuff, my dad had, was a farmer, so he had part of a machine shed that he let me use. But when I even built I was at my shop full time then, out of my dad's corner of his machine shed. When I built my tube chassis for my DeSoto, I had it, since it wasn't a customer car, out actually beside my dad's tractor with barely any lights and no heat. And I'd put on 5 layers of long underwear and coveralls and just pull that salamander heater around me and just shoot it at me. And now I'm a sissy. It's got to be a good, comfortable 70 degrees in my shop for me to do anything. So
yeah. Yeah, I was pretty determined. And I ended up getting on the Demon, I ended up at first with a 9-inch wide rim, and we were all about the slicks on the street.
Mm-hmm.
And Firestone made, did you ever see Firestone made drag 500s that had every size had two different, how would you say, two versions of the same size. So an 11.5 by 31 would be 11.5 by 31,
Mm-hmm.
but 11.5W was like 13 and a quarter wide.
Yeah, I don't remember that tire.
The big number always for us, and what my Nova had, was 1432. That's all anybody talked about. 1432 Firestones, and they had a W version that was 15 and a half. That's what was on the Chevy too. But my Demon had 11.5 Ws on a 9-inch rim and a Dana rear end, and just an offset wheel. And I
did you put bigger tubs underneath the Demon?
No, I didn't even. I just crammed as much as I could in there.
Okay.
And then later that Demon, sometime after that, got tubbed. It had 1432s on it. Fact is, that car, somebody asked me about it yesterday, the day before. That car has been sitting in pieces all these years, since probably the last time it ran, maybe 1980. I don't know.
Wow.
But it's been sitting in a garage somewhere. I know someone who knows where it is, but and it may be back half. It may be a complete tube chassis at this point. I don't know.
So then, what year was the Nova debuted again?
The Nova debut. So, and that's where I started to go with that story then. So I didn't have a garage, and so in.
And this is you. If I got the story right, the house you still live in, that was your parents' house. Like, you never moved out. You just bought the house from them.
No, I was out, but I guess with the continuation of the story, I built the garage that's here in 77. I bought the Chevy 2. The Chevy 2 was a race car. It was a tubbed race car.
Mm-hmm.
And I bought it in 76. And same deal, didn't have a garage. And then Mike Yaley and another good neighbor friend, Ken Flory, who was and is a contractor, Mike and Ken and all of his friends built my garage. And so the first, I'm trying to think in order here, again, memory. We finished my garage, and the first thing I did was pulled my girlfriend's Opel GT. She had an Opel GT that was absolute garbage. And I pulled it in the garage and literally slung fiberglass and Bondo all over it and painted it, and we got rid of it. And then I think the second vehicle was a Pro Stock Monza, a local guy. And same situation, Tim. Think about this. Pro Stock Monza, so it had steel roof. The quarters were steel, but they had these giant wheel wells that you fiberglassed onto the steel for the tires. It had fiberglass doors, fiberglass front end, fiberglass bumpers, and I did all the body work, painted it, and I mean painted the hell out of it. I mean it was yellow and black with graphics down the sides. Lettered it, painted headlights in it, painted a mural on the hood, painted taillights in it in 2 weeks and 2 days.
Wow.
I don't even know how that happened.
So obviously you said you did airbrush and graphics on that motorcycle when you were 12.
Right.
Did you take art classes at school, or did you just figure out that you were good with an airbrush?
Yeah, and even to this day, I would tell you, I am not an airbrush artist. I am not someone who is, like you worded, good with an airbrush. An airbrush for me is used for shading and detail work, but I can't take an airbrush and do a mural of you riding a horse or something. You know what I mean? Like they can at the mall. I don't do that. But I also built model cars and that's actually another influence of mine, was a a cousin of mine named Steve Hosfeld, and he gave me all of his model car spare parts. Same situation. I was 5, and the only reason I remember that is because we lived somewhere else for a short period. So I remember playing with those model parts. But
yeah, I was at the Hobby Lobby this weekend, Saturday, and I was like, I want to go look at the models because a lot of times they put more models out at Christmas. So I'm back there, and I was like, I was going to buy this model, which I didn't. My dad won't listen to this anyway. For my dad for Christmas, because he's Tri-5 guy, so we always try to buy him stuff that he doesn't have. And the damn it was a 55 gasser model was $40. That's why little kids don't. I mean, they're harder to find now. I mean, our Walmart put them out for Christmas, but a basic glue together model kit is $40 now. That's why the little kid with do kids even get allowances? I don't even know. But it blew my mind. I was talking to another model guy there, and he goes, "That's why little kids don't. Why we're losing the next generation of hot rodders because it's a $40 together."
The biggest reason for losing the next generation, because you hear it a whole lot, and it's absolutely true. But I mean, maybe even go back 2 generations. You didn't see a 57 Chevy with a straight axle and a tilt front end, just parked on the side of the road like I did when I was a little kid riding to the model shop.
Yeah.
And you didn't ride around in a 55 Chevy, with a 327 and a 4-speed. I mean, kids, they haven't been subjected to that.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I mean, I always talk about today. We were sitting at a traffic light and 3 cars turned left in front of us in a left turn lane. I looked at my buddy and I said, "Jelly bean, jelly bean, jelly bean." All those cars, that's what these kids grew up. They grew up watching video games, playing video games. Why would they care about hot rods?
Yeah.
And their phone. Yeah, which is hilarious, Carrie. I want to do it, and I probably still will. I go to the gym every day, weekdays, and I go in the morning. And at any given time, I mean, it's every time, but I mean, one day I looked around, and there were probably 10 or 12 of us in the gym at that time. It was like 7 in the morning. Everyone was on their phone. Everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to just take my phone and just pan around like, yeah, it's the gym 2025. It's ridiculous.
First of all, he's talking about 7 a.m. and he's talking about the gym.
Mm-hmm.
We don't know what either of those
Yeah,
are.
I don't know what
I
don't know what kind of language he's talking about. Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, it's unfortunate that we just don't have that. Those kids never got to see that stuff. So why do they care?
Yep. Different times.
The guys that I know, that younger kids, their dads are obviously, or their grandpa or uncle are car people.
Right.
I mean, now around here, we're not where we grew up, but we see some hot rods in this. We're by Nashville, and the hot rod scene's pretty good here, but you still don't see just random stuff sitting. There's a few lowered C10s and OBS trucks and a few Chevelles and Novas that I see randomly at lunch or something like that. So
think about how
just not as prevalent as it used to be. Definitely.
I mean, think how expensive the trucks are now.
Yeah,
the prices went to the moon. A 66 Chevelle, and it's funny because I've always used the example of 67 Nova or 70 Chevelle. I mean, they're both real favorites of mine. And a 67 Nova stock, they're pieces of shit. I mean, if you've got one, you've got to redo all the suspension. It's just they're garbage. And the money they're bringing now, I'm like, I'm good.
Yeah,
a 70 Chevelle, I can sit here, close my eyes, and imagine opening the knob. I can feel the knob on my thumb of the door. Shut the door. I know that sound. Put the key in the ignition. All that is burned into my brain. I'm sorry, not $50,000 worth. I mean, they're cool, but they're not $50,000 cool.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, again, why kids can't afford that stuff?
Yep.
So, I don't know, but there are still plenty of, not enough, but plenty of young people, fabricators, hot rodders, and you may not even care for their taste or the things they do. But I've had a number of occasions where people will come up to me and they'd be talking to me and they'd go, "Yeah, I was a mini trucker. I did that mini truck thing for a long time." And to actually, I guess, go back, we keep ping ponging with the conversation, but when I was young, I built model cars, and I would go to the ISCA car show every year. I went to Detroit car show. My buddy asked me the other day, again, you talk about age, Bob Seger. Okay, before Bob Seger, it was the Bob Seger system.
Mhm.
And I saw him at the Detroit car show. I don't even know what year that was. But anyway, I would go to the car show and see all these cars, and then come home and try and figure out how to do those paint jobs, but with model paint or whatever. Acetylene torch, I used a candle and would burn model plastic and then put clear over it. Cobwebbing, I mostly would just do by hand. But I mean, I used to do lettering and all that stuff. And then there was an ISCA car that did very, very well. It was a 66 Olds Cutlass, and it faded color from front to rear. It had ghost flames on it. It had gold leaf on it. And then it had another painting style I want to try and describe. And I copied that whole paint job on a 71 Roadrunner funny car I built, and entered it in the ISCA shows. And what would happen is, if you won best of show at a whatever show, Cincinnati, Dayton, Detroit, whatever, then you were eligible for a grand finale. And you could either go there. Again, I was a little kid, so you had to mail your car to this car show. And I remember packing it in popcorn, but you had to do popcorn and put your model in it. But anyway, I won second in the country with that Roadrunner. And the individual that owned the Olds came up to me at a show, and he was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you copied my paint job, 1/25th scale." But so, and one of the things as far as painting goes, that car that I'm talking about was painted by a painter in Covington, Kentucky. His name was Bill Roll, and he had a guy, a sign writer that he worked with, named Jim Farr, and they were known as Short Round and Dauber. And those two painted every race car at the drag strip that I went to.
Yeah, I the role name sounds familiar to me.
Does it?
know. Yeah.
Well, so Billy the Kid, the Pro Stockers, which there's another story, which I guess I can tell he's dead. He painted the first Billy the Kid car. He painted Fred Hurst's cars, the Opal, the Barracuda. They were just, to this day, I mean, when I think back of that time period, you had Bill Carter Pro Paints in California that Stanford worked at, and then you have Circus in New Jersey. And I love that stuff. I mean, they did all the funny cars. I love that stuff. But Short Round and Dauber, in my eyes, were the most amazing painters I've ever seen to this day. I mean, and they did a lot of cars. So I would try and even as I started painting full-size cars, just try and copy. I don't know what the word, emulate, copy the things they did, the techniques they used. I tried for a long, long time. And I could do some cool paint jobs. Even the Chevy 2, people still talk about the faded color from one to another color all the way down the rear or down the side of the car, and then with the acetylene. But never quite mastered that magic that they had, you know what I mean? But eventually, and it took me a long time, trying to think in terms of time frame again, I started getting, okay, it wasn't. So I told you I painted the Pro Stock Monza in my garage. And then 3 cars. One was a 70 Chevelle that we named Brain Damage, and it was painted like Dark Side of the Moon. The top of it was silver, the bottom of it was black, and it had the Dark Side of the Moon heartbeat thingy on the side. And then there was a bright green Pearl 69 Camaro. And then there was my Chevy 2. And my Chevy 2 was candy red, and it had an L88 hood scoop on it, and it had a big block in it, and a single 4-barrel. This was 1978. And I finished the Chevelle and the Camaro. And I guess in retrospect, I looked at the Nova and I was like, I'm not going for it. So I kept the Nova home in 78, and it had center lines on it even. And we went over the Street Machine Nationals with the Camaro and the Chevelle. And then I changed everything and finished the car in 79 for the 79 Street Machine Nationals. And then, if you've never heard me say or heard people talk about, I took that car to Indy, and I didn't win any awards. I mean, people hardly looked at the car. But every magazine, Popular Hot Rodding, Carcraft, Hot Rod, all 3 shot it that weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And all 3 came out in the October issue. The October issue of everything had my Chevy 2 in it. And the following year, I pulled it in the Street Machine Nationals, and I tell this story, and again, you're like, okay, those are your memories. I've had people come up and tell me this story. When I pulled into the gates at the Street Machine Nationals, there were hundreds of people running towards my car.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my girlfriend and I were like, oh my God. It was crazy.
Yeah, I remember that because I never went to Indy. My first Street Machine Nationals, I think I was 13, was in 84. It was in St. Louis at the drag strip, Gateway.
It was 84 or 85 because it was only there 1 year.
It might have been 85. I think I was 14. So yeah, 85. And then I went on a run. I hardly missed DeCoin, but I remember in the DeCoin years when you would bring a car or Doberton or Rocky Robertson, man, you'd have to stand there for a half hour to try to get a picture because it was just, I mean, you know, Rocky likes the limelight. We're recording him in a week or so. And his car was too low to get up on the curb on the grass when he did that Oldsmobile. He would just pull it in the road on a corner and power park it and get out and like, here I am. And it was like back then, them Pro Streets, it was like going to a rock show. I mean, all you guys in the magazines, they would just swarm around you guys as you rolled in. And you pretty much, like I seen Rocky pulled in that time and he pretty much had to stop because he couldn't drive because people were just standing in the way.
Right. So. Yeah, God, you know, God, there's so many stories. So I took my Nova in 79, and do you remember at least hearing about all the riots and stuff at Indy?
Yep.
That was ground zero where we stayed, 21st and Shadeland. And I remember getting in my Chevy 2 and driving, which I still don't remember which street is which I have to, let me think about that. We must have stayed on 21st Street, and I was crossing Shadeland. We stayed on 21st Street. We were less than an eighth of a mile from Shadeland. So I got in the car, turned left, drove across the street to go to hotels down there, basically a half mile away. And, went down, turned around the parking lot, and came back out, and the streets were just mobbed with people, just mobbed, directly in front of you. I mean, you had to go 2 miles an hour because people were just everywhere. But one of the stories, and I've posted it online, and I've got, in fact, it was right behind me. I think I put it away. So I had a friend that helped me on the car quite a bit, just doing stupid stuff. And we were at the hotel parking lot. It was Saturday night, and it was about 6 o'clock in the evening. Once again, keep in mind, there are people everywhere. And a guy walked up to my car, and it was sitting there with the hood on it, and he had a T-shirt on that said 10-second streetcar on the breastplate right here. And then on the back, there was an airbrush rendering. I didn't do it, I swear. With his Corvette. It was a yellow 66 Corvette convertible. And it said 10-second streetcar on the back. And he walked up to my car and he said, "Are those little 600 Hollies on there?" And I said, yeah. And he said, I got dual feed double pumpers on mine. And I said, oh, wow, good for you. And he said, what do you got, a Wyand, or what do you got, a Dyer blower on this? And I said, yeah. And he said, I got a Wyand blower. It's got a real blower manifold, not none of that Dyer crap. I said, oh, that's cool. And I didn't say a word to him. And especially back then, I really didn't put up much people's shit. But anyway, so he finally walked away. And every friend I had was in that parking lot. I mean, everybody I knew stayed at that motel. I mean, we all hung out. So we're all hanging around. I looked at my buddy Jim and I said, you haven't even ridden in this yet, have you? And he said, no. And I said, come on, let's go for a ride. Now, keeping in mind, I finished the car at 5 o'clock in the morning on Thursday morning.
Of course, yeah.
So I hadn't driven it much. And so he jumped in the car, and rather than turn left towards the action, we turned right. And took off down the road, just buzzing down the road, la, la, la. Well, my friend said, that guy in the Corvette, as soon as he saw me get in my car, he ran out of his motel room, jumped in his Corvette, and came after me. So Jim and I rode down the street about maybe a mile and a half, 2 miles, and there was a school parking lot. Turned left into the school parking lot, and I looked at Jim and I said, I haven't nailed this thing yet. And so I nailed it, and we basically both just pooped our pants. It was, I mean, I don't know, would be around 800 horsepower. I mean, it's a 468 with a supercharger, and it was overdriven. I mean, it had every race thing you can imagine. So anyway, we pull back out onto the street and start heading back towards the hotel, and here comes the guy in the Corvette. He makes a U-turn. And I'm like, oh, my God, this freaking guy. I'm not going to race him at the Street Machine National on Saturday night at 6 o'clock. And he comes rolling up next to me. And I just looked at him and I said, go ahead, I'll catch you. And that had a 400 turbo with a manual valve body. And so you could, I don't know if you know how that works, you slap the shifter down to first gear and at 30 mile an hour. And the motor will just go to stall, or it'll just idle. So then you nail it, it goes up on the converter and then takes off. So you could do that rolling. And so I said, go ahead, I'll catch you. And he took off. I slapped the shifter and nailed it. I passed him like he parked. Literally, in retrospect, if he had a true 10-second car, then I had a true low 9-second car. I absolutely spanked him. And we
he went back to the hotel and just went to his room and never hung out in the parking lot the rest of the night, didn't he?
First of all, I told you, all my friends, every one of them got it on camera. I mean, there's a million pictures of that race. And the picture that I have is the Corvette looks like a speck in the background. I mean, like more than 10 cars. But anyway, so we get up to Shadeland 21st traffic light. I think there's 2 left turn lanes. And he says, run me from a dead stop. And I thought, fuck it. I mean, we're already doing what we're doing. So we both, from the left turn lane, just made a U-turn to head back towards the hotel and stopped our cars. And we both nailed it, and he might as well park. I mean, I literally just jumped, and just then Jim says, does your oil pressure gauge work?
Oh, shit.
And the oil pressure was 0.
Oh.
So I killed it and put it neutral and coasted into the hotel parking lot. And I guess apparently at one time or another, because keep in mind, Chevy 2, big block Chevy, I smashed my oil pan against the pickup. So anyway, it was Saturday night. We weren't even going to go back to the event on Sunday. So we just pulled it in the parking lot, took the hood off of it. Guy comes pulling in the parking lot with the Corvette. He walks over and goes, this has got a big block in it. And I was like, yeah. And he goes, Jesus Christ. And I said, you never asked me that. You just asked about the carburetors. So then, and one more part of that story, it's hilarious. Many years later, so that was 79. in the early 90s, I'm going to the Good Guys at Indy, and I'm spectatoring that year. I parked the car. I'm walking through the spectator parking lot, and I hear this unmistakable supercharger on it. You know what I mean? Whine. And I look over, and it's that Corvette, 860s. And so my buddy was walking through the parking lot, not with me, with his buddy, and he saw the same thing. And he said he looked at his friend and he said, "See that?" He said, "Scott did that to that guy."
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's what I say. They're so it never ends. There's so many stories, stuff that would happen.
So how many years did you show the Nova around?
I took it to the Street Machine Nationals, 79, 80, I think in 81, and then I quit. I think I quit taking it. I might be wrong. I sold it in 83 or 84 to Ronnie, and he's kept it to this day.
Yeah, that's cool. So I know now this time you're painting a lot of cars, you're doing a lot of graphics on stuff, and this was the which I wish graphics would come back. Intricate details, the graphics. I still don't know how you secret that. Whenever you seen the graphics that you did, you'd have to get down and you would read, I don't know, 1/8-inch tall letters, and you would write a story down the graphics.
Right. You want to know how I did it?
Yeah.
That's what you're asking?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a secret. Oh, God.
You can say it's a trade secret. We don't have to say it.
Yeah, no. India ink and an ink pen.
Yeah.
A quill ink pen. And, the ones, because there are calligraphy tips, but there are also tips that are just, for writing.
Yeah, when me and my buddy seen the Bones Camaro at the Nationals, we talked about that car half the way home. And he's like, oh, he has to this was just the beginning of the age of printing stuff and stencils on computers. It was like, oh, he probably wrote it out and then scaled it down, and it was a paint mask, and it picked the letters out. Or there's no way, because most of us had shitty handwriting, so there's no way we could write that small anyway.
Well, the big thing is you can't. To this day, there may be cutters that'll cut it, but you can't weed it.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I mean? Not that small. I mean, that's small. And frankly, confession, that's another short round dauber. They used to they didn't do that so much because the Bones Camaro is an extreme, but they would always sign their name and some kind of nonsensical, rock based, whatever, some kind of little saying behind it. When I was in high school, I went to a town near me, really small town, and on a Friday night, just doing what high school kids do or whatever, and parked downtown in this really small town, a 63 Chevy station wagon. It was silver. It had 15x4 Fenton gyros on the back, and it wasn't tubbed or anything. It probably had, I don't know, a 7-inch slick or whatever on the back. Had a tunnel ram and 2 carburetors, and on the tailgate it had a gold leaf butterfly, and it said, "Flies can bird, but birds can't fly." vice versa. Yeah. Anyway, let's say that properly. I'm having a hard time.
Can you flip that?
No.
Yeah. Wait. That's what it said. I used to be able to just rattle it off. Birds can fly, but flies can't bird. There you go.
Okay.
Gotcha.
Anyway, so, and then if you went to St. Louis in '85, my yellow chop Chevy truck, I had it there, and then the mechanical graphics Chevette.
What year was the truck?
68.
I think I have a picture of that in my. You got back then. I would take a camera and 15 rolls of film.
Yeah.
And I'd have to save up. I'd buy a couple rolls of film every week, getting ready for the Nats.
Get them developed.
And then the same thing is like I'd take a couple in 2 or 3 at a time and get them developed. It'd take me a month to get all the rolls of film developed, so I didn't have the extra money to get it all done at the same time. I have this folder or this, like, what do you call it, at the library with like the Dewey Decimal System or whatever, you pull out. Yeah. I have slide things. I have this metal. It's probably 2.5 foot tall, 3 foot wide, and it's just full of pictures, and over half of them are from Street Machine Nationals. And that guy that runs the Street Machine, whatever, social media.
Street Machine Central.
Huh?
Street Machine Central.
Yeah.
Michael Sheeran.
Yeah, and he's like, man, can you loan me that stuff? And I want to scan them, because I've wrote a couple little articles about Nationals back in the day, and I think I can trust him with my pictures, which would be weird.
Michael's a good guy.
Yeah, he's a really good guy. So I should loan him a box so he can scan them and put them on. I think people would love to see pictures from back in that era. So yeah.
I've actually, I don't have as many photographs of stuff as I should have had, but I took most of what I had and basically photographed it and put it either on Instagram or Facebook, just so that it's out there. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, I've done so much, which you can imagine, again, my age, of course you've done a lot, but man, I've done a lot of stuff I've forgotten. Mm-hmm. But, and frankly, not, because every now and then somebody will bring something up as though I'm going to be embarrassed, which is the same thing as saying, oh, you had a mullet. Hey, before a mullet, I had an afro. And what did you have? You know what I mean? It's like,
I had a mohawk.
Yeah, there you go. You're not going to embarrass me with that.
Yeah, you always look like you could be the stunt double for, which one is it from Hall & Oates?
Yeah, John Oates.
Yeah, which that's not a bad doppelganger for you. Yeah, you really look like him on that one cover of the Stitzer truck. You had, I always
Hot Truck magazine. And that's the only time.
You always looked like you carried a bottle of Soul Glow with you back then.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, nor did I do that.
It's the guy had an afro in the Eddie Murphy Coming to America movie, and his family company had Soul Glow, and it would like keep your afro wet.
I was going to say, it seemed like there's another name for. Wait, oh no, Jerry Curl?
Maybe, yeah.
Anyway, the time that backfired.
Why in all these magazines? You see this, Carrie?
I know I got my glasses on. Is he half naked?
He's shirtless and no shoes on.
Let me see.
Talking to a cop in the magazine.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Here he is, shirtless, working on a car. Yeah, he was just the shirtless guy in the magazines.
You know what?
Well,
it's going to that gym. It's because he went to the gym. That's right.
No, and it's funny because the shirtless guy comes from being a greasy Italian, and from the belt button up, I sweat like there's nobody's business. It was wet in 2 seconds, and so I just never wore a shirt. But going to the gym, because I never took steroids, I was never some big monster guy, but just because of going to the gym, that in turn creates a persona, we'll say, which is not good. But I didn't give a shit. I mean, I sweat so bad, it's like, fuck it, I'm not wearing a shirt. And I never, for the longest time, I wouldn't. Always at the Street Machine Nationals. But yeah, kind of famous for it.
Well, the Street Machine Nationals, everybody was half naked at that anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
But it's also why you're the age you are, and nobody would guess that you're the age that you are. Yeah. So,
and I don't know if you know that, but you still don't give a shit. So, yeah. So when after the Nova, when was the plan? The 55. How did that project start?
Well, let's rather than make that leap, I want to talk about the Chevelle that you saw, the mechanical graphic Chevelle.
Okay.
Because that guy approached me in 1980, 66 Chevelle. He took it to Jegs and had it tubbed and brought it to me to paint it. And I basically took it upon myself to build him this Mac Daddy G-Man Chevelle. I mean, I had an idea again. So back to the graphics and breaking away from trying to copy my heroes and create a style of my own. That would have been, shoot, that could have been an absolute like pivotal moment. Because again, my Chevy 2 70, I painted it in 78, but I mean, it was still, trying to emulate my heroes. And Steve Williams came along with this Chevelle, and I had this idea that I wanted to do a graphic that when you got up on it, it was all kind of details. And so I painted this mechanical graphic thingy on the side of this car. But I did a lot of innovative, creative stuff on that Chevelle. First time I'd ever brushed a set of wheels. Made those center caps, the flat center caps that hide the dust cover in the front and the lug nuts in back. Painted all the window trim, which is also something you have to keep in mind. No, I didn't go to art school, et cetera, but I mean, I am artist through and through, and look at things. I mean, and these are not so much opinions. These are things people tell me that just make me go, oh, really? I mean, I have a friend that tells everyone his eyes aren't the same as ours. He sees things differently than us. And I do. And so generally when I do something, it's for a reason. But blacked out the window trim on the Chevelle. And going back and forth with the paint thing. On the 70 Chevelle that I had painted, I painted the bumpers and I painted the Super Sport rubber, on the back of a Chevelle bumper. I painted that on. And then painted turn signals on the front bumper because it had a fiberglass front bumper on it. But then my Chevy 2 came along and I had a new old stock rear Super Sport piece for the trunk lid, but I had made the hood and the trunk and the bumpers out of fiberglass, and I bolted this new old stock piece of cast aluminum on it, whatever. And when you lifted the trunk lid off, it was heavy in the back because of the trim. And I thought, this isn't going to work. So I took it off, I filled it, and I painted the Super Sport on the back. So, and all that's just copying funny cars. You know what I mean? With all their trim painted. But when the Chevelle came along, rather than paint all the Super Sport badges on it, I thought, I'm going to paint all the Malibu stuff on it instead, just to be different. But anyway, I painted those mechanical graphics. I finished all
How did you talk this guy into letting you have free reign and try to explain to somebody that you're going to do mechanical graphics on the side of it? Or is he just super cool and trusting and says, like, just do it?
Yeah, he was cool. Which also he was cool, but one of the funnier things about that. So the wheel of the day was weld wheels with the round holes. And I said, I want to brush your wheels. And he said, he was real soft-spoken, and he didn't express himself much at all. I mean, even if he didn't want you to do something, he probably wouldn't even tell you. And anyway, I said, I want to brush your wheels. And he said, no. And I said, oh, man, he left. And before he was 2 miles away, I had one of his wheels on the back of my 78 Monte Carlo and that was on jack stands and put it in gear and held sandpaper to it. And I was doing the first wheel and he came back and he pulled up. Hi. Oh dear. But anyway, a lot of creative stuff on that Chevelle. Finished it in 81. And it was almost done. It wasn't completely done. It's probably, let me think how far along. I've got pictures. I think the motor was in it. It didn't run yet. Hey, we're boring you with it. We could talk about something else, Tim.
No, I'm seeing if I can find a picture to show people of that car. I don't have Facebook right now, but I'm scrolling back through I'm not sure where pictures are. But anyway, finished in 81, and
almost completely done it. He said, I want a tube chassis. And I said, what? And he said, I want a tube chassis. And I said, we're not cutting this car up. If you want a tube chassis, let's buy another Chevelle and do this. We can't destroy this car, at least until it gets seen. And he just parked it.
Huh.
Nobody saw it. And so in 84.
Have you even posted a picture of it in the past?
Well, it's been in 84, his wife came to me and said, we're finishing the car. Slow down.
Just went away.
I just see a
I hit it. Is that blue car, right?
turquoise. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so anyway, his wife came to me and said, we need to finish the car. So we finished the car and took it to St. Louis. It was in St. Louis.
Okay.
But also,
I wonder if I have a picture of that, because I was at St. Louis.
It would have been worth taking at that time.
Yeah.
But also, oh my God, all this is tied together just like Kevin Bacon. So I did that in 81. Rick Dauberton is building this new top secret crazy car.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, Rick's quite the drama queen. You know, he's like, won't tell anybody what it is or what he's doing or blah, blah, blah. He called me one day and he said, I want you to paint my car. And I said, okay. And I'd already done the Chevelle, but nobody had seen it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, if you have me do this, you're not going to be sorry, because I've got an idea that will blow people's minds. And he said, I really want you to do it, but I can't afford to pay you. Hmm. And I said, and I really want to do it, but I can't afford to do it for free.
Yeah.
And so that's how he ended up at the paint job he has. And fast forward to
who painted that car originally?
Oh, somebody, just a local guy, I guess in Maryland or whatever. Mm-hmm. You know, I was over paint jobs of that nature then. Mm-hmm. You know, it was too much, but you know, again, difference of opinion. Mm-hmm. But anyway, Rick came up to me at St. Louis because we debuted the Chevelle there. And again, it doesn't matter, but in the grand scheme of everything going 200 miles an hour, 4 years later after I painted it. But anyway, Rick came up and he goes, is this what you had in mind for the J2000? And I said, yep. And he was like, oh my God. Because I was going to do, it's going to be a robot hand and arm, mm-hmm. Holding a ray gun and shooting color. You know, the arm would have been the length of the quarter panel. And then the hand would have been like.
I think somebody stole your idea for the first Fast and Furious movie.
Yeah, well, it took them years. But yeah, I just started on this thought process. And I just saw a post the other day where somebody said something about wish that they'd bring back graphics. Mm-hmm. And my opinion, and it's interesting the way all this played out. And I've thought about how am I going to convey this without naming names. So somebody, I guess, apparently had posted something along the lines of graphics or blah, blah, blah. And then somebody else said, you and two other people, he said me and two other people inspired him to be who he is today, to do, you know, build hot rods and blah, blah, blah. Okay, here's the issue. Myself and one of the people that he named were good. The third guy is absolutely horrific. I mean, terrible. I don't have anything good to say.
Here.
Oh, nobody would mention me in that circle. Yeah.
I don't have anything good to say about them. And I mean, I would be objective, not just the person, but the art. My point is, people don't know the difference. And if that's the case, why do it? You know, there are, you know, a number of people who know the difference, but
this is it's not graphics, but this is cars and history of explaining how people don't know the difference. we've talked about this once before. We know a guy that the Fred Warren cars were for sale a couple years ago, and we know somebody that went and looked at the Smoothster, the Boyd Coddington AMBR winner. That car sprung three fiberglass bodies, and this person went and looked at it and says, "Oh man, I don't want to spend the money it's going to take to update it." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, I'd have to put new wheels on it and put an LS in it." And I was like, "Oh my God, you don't do that to the Smoothster." Hopefully the guy that ended up buying it at the Mecum auction understands the history of that thing, and that car will stay like that for many years.
But the problem is Boyd capitalized on it. Yay for Boyd, but ruined it for that car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because if I walk by it, I'd probably know. You know the difference. They are.
Yeah.
The fiberglass cars are.
But 50% of the people don't.
Correct.
Yeah.
More than 50.
Yeah.
And again, that's the point. You know, it's like, why do artwork if people can't tell? Oh, and the other thing is, I guess another reason for it was, so I had created a style, and I mean, and that's one of more than anything else. I influenced every painter in this country, and in the world for that matter. And I mean, I'll take that to my grave. I mean, that's call me arrogant. That's the way it was.
And some people took example and tried to copy. Guys like me that thought we were starting to get good with our airbrushes, I was like, screw that. I didn't touch my airbrush for 5 years.
But that's one of those deals where once everybody's doing it or trying to do it, it just gets diluted. You know?
But I'm one of them that's ready for graphics to come back, and I'm doing an OBS truck, and I think Danny Taylor's going to come down and help me. Good friend of mine, Danny, paint legend too, from Louisville. And he said,
you do know that the entire saying on the Bones Camaro was Danny and his dad.
Oh, yeah?
That was about Danny and his dad.
Huh.
Which Danny and I kissed and made up, but, or not that there was ever a direct war.
I don't remember the story on the Bones Camaro. I remember it went to the full length of the car.
Well, so if you lived in Louisville, Kentucky, your car was being painted by tailors.
Yeah.
And they were good. I mean, at that style painting, they were good. And really good. But after you've seen 30 of them, you want to see something different. So Todd Clark was building this Camaro, and he was like, I don't want tailors to paint it just because that's the same as everything around here. So I had that idea, same situation. And that Bones Camaro, there's an actual story, because I think that car was painted in 94, 96, somewhere around there. But the idea to paint bones on a car came to me from watching the Ralph Bakshi animated film called Heavy Metal. And what I'm about to tell you is dumber than hell. But I watched this movie, and then I have this vision of watching the movie and seeing two of the characters walking, and the sky is really, really bright yellow and orange and magenta, and there are a pile of bones, and they walk past it. And the pile of bones would be like 20 feet high and 30 feet long or whatever. And that burned into my brain. And so I thought, I want to, because, freaking skulls, as annoying as they are, skulls have been forever. And I thought bones and bone color in general, that's cool. And I thought, what if you just painted a bunch of skeleton bones? Wouldn't have to be human, could be, whatever, but painted bones the length of a car. And so when Todd called me, he said, I'm thinking about doing this, but if I do this, I'm going to be condemned in Louisville, Kentucky. This is going to be a big deal. And I said, I know exactly what to do. I had this idea. I've been waiting to do it. And I think the kicker was, he said it was purple and turquoise with a bone interior. And I was like, a bone interior. So anyway, but even that quickly, they wouldn't talk to him. They wouldn't let him go to any of their shows that they put on, and they put on a lot, et cetera, et cetera. So every bit of that saying is directed at them, and they knew it. So, but like I say, everything's a story. So, but anyway, back to the heavy metal. I went and saw the heavy metal after that. There's no scene like that in that movie. So I don't know. Must have to lay off the crack or loosen it.
Paint fumes. Yeah.
Indeed.
So after you got that, you kind of jumped out of order there to the Bones Camaro, but after the mechanical Chevelle, and then are you doing a lot of graphics and stuff for people now? Because I mean, your graphics were starting to be everywhere. Are you still doing motorcycles at this time too? Because I know on your social media you've done a lot of motorcycles.
Yeah, I've always done motorcycles. I painted motorcycles in my basement here until
too much paint fumes. yeah, it's in your house.
I got my garage. Yeah. So I had my garage. Fact is, we were laughing about how many Z1 Kawasaki's, 900 Kawasaki's I ruined, because I've actually since had to go back and do original paint jobs on some restorations. I painted a million of those things, a million Harleys. Yeah, I painted a lot of stuff. And then for a long time, though, I think of that time period around the 2000s, maybe, people weren't bringing me much car stuff. So I survived on motorcycles. And that turned into, I heard he just does bike stuff now. And I'm like, no, that's not true. But God, it was a rumor for a while. I hated it.
I call us hot rod whores. We do what we have to because that's what. Yeah, if they want to bring you bikes, you do bikes. If you want,
pay the bills.
Yeah, they want you to pro street a bunch of stuff. You pro street a bunch of stuff. So yeah. So okay, let's talk about the 55. Let's get on that one.
Yes. Oh, so I bought it in 1980, and tubbed it within 3 weeks of owning it. And it was leaf springs, center lines. When I got it, it was 70 Maverick turquoise. It had a press pleat interior in it, 327, 350 turbo. And like I say, within 3 weeks of owning it, my partner for a little while, buddy, that actually owned the black 57, my old black 57, he's the one that, after 3 weeks, he said, let's tub your 55 because I want to experiment before I do my car. and he's really, really a craftsman. I was like, yeah. So we tubbed the 55. And then my girlfriend at the time ended up driving it tubbed for a long time. That's her daily car. She worked at a supermarket as a cashier. She drove it to work. But
you don't have to worry about anybody stealing the wheels because they can't get them out from underneath the car.
Exactly. I even then was real fussy about wheel and tire location on a vehicle. How I want something as low as I can get it. I want it to look like a race car. I grew up with the drag strip, and so I had every front suspension trick, meaning I cut my coils on the 55, and the cross member was close to the ground. I wanted it lower, and so at the time, and actually I remember that I was at the Street Machine Nationals one year, and there was a guy from Canada there with a '69 Camaro. It was dark candy green, I think, and it was hammered on the ground and ground clearance. And I said, what did you do with this? He said, I just need the frame. And that's the first time I'd heard the term, and which it's been around forever, but it's the first time I'd heard and seen what he had done. And so the other thing was subframing things. And so I put 69 no-look Camaro, whatever subframe, underneath the front of the 55 and put it where I thought it needed to be. And mucked it all up, put it on the ground. It wasn't low enough. So I Z'd the frame, and I built a core support, and my brain just went dead for inner wheel wells. I couldn't figure out what it was that I wanted. I just couldn't figure it out. Because you bend the inner wheel well with, sheet metal, 290-degree bends or whatever. I knew I wanted something more than that. So there was a local race car guy, actually, ironically, the person who had built my Chevy 2 originally, the back half. And I took it to him and said, I need inner fender wells. I need them to be in steel. I want a really soft radius where they, transition down from the top of the fender. And I think that was it. And he charged me $300, and he made me 2 aluminum inner fender wells that I hated. So I took his fender wells out, stomped them flat, used them for a template, and made what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So it was still worth doing, but I needed to have it. I needed to see it before I could figure out what I wanted. But that car sat for a long, long time, just for that reason. I couldn't figure out what to do with it. And then I also still own a 1940 Ford Coupe, and I had both of them in my 2-car garage, and would work on one and work on the other. Work on one. Okay, first of all, that doesn't pay well. Second of all, it seemed like neither car was getting done. So I finally got the Ford out of the garage, and a buddy of mine and I started on the 55, and we didn't stop till it was done. And it was like 2.5 years, maybe. Something around there. But same situation. A lot of strange ideas for the time. And it makes me happy. A lot of people don't realize.
This is the car we're talking about. If you don't know this car, 1, this is why we do this, so people can learn some history. And 2, if you don't know the Cheese Whiz 55, you're not really a hot rod person in my book.
Well, one of the things about it is funny because think about that article. It's like that needs to be mandatory for every hot rod person to read because it was a good story. It was just
I read it quite a few times in math class in high school. That's why I have trouble with math now. But I wore a copy out, and then I bought another copy, and I cut it up and put it on my wall. And these are ones that are in my library that I went to. See how handy my library is now? I just went, I remember the years, and I went and got
nice.
the 2
as
issues.
Long as you put them all back when you're done.
Will.
Carrie's going, I'm impressed.
Yeah.
Oh, I love his new inventory in his
I'm inventorying my magazine collection.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun automobile to build. Even one of my recollections was having an intake manifold sanded with 180 grit, get rid of all the casting, and walking outside with it in the middle of winter and plopping it on 4 milk crates that were, stacked up with my paint gun with epoxy primer. At the time, only came in army looking green, and pointing my gun at that intake going, here I go. Because nobody painted an aluminum intake manifold.
Yeah, so people at this time, we were talking about graphics. Everything had crazy graphics and stripes, multiple colors, and you're the graphics guy, one of the graphics guys. And then it was like, what's his name? Nebraska guy. With all the Pro Street turbochargers on blowers and turbochargers that went into the scoop. Yeah, Mark Grimes. Yeah. And there's no way those turbochargers could work because they're in the air scoop, not in the motor, but they look bitchin'. It was the years of fairgrounds cruisers, pro fairgrounds cruisers. Yeah, and then you show up at the Nats with this car it had graphics on the trunk lid, all the brush trim, no shiny, not a stitch of chrome on it, a single carburetor, big block, nitrous. And when I seen the car, I know there was crowds around it during the day, but I seen it. I have pictures of the first pictures I took of it the year you were at DeCoin. It was parked. Brett Vocal used to work for them. They had the red semi-trailers.
Blower Drive Service?
No, it was before he worked for Blower Drive Service. It was a company that sold everything, and you could get your nitrous bottles changed. And they always had two red car trailers, semi trailers parked in a grass area. People would power park there. I just talked to him about it not too long ago on the Cars and Cones trip. But anyway, that was before he went to Blower Drive Service. And I remember the car was parked in that area towards the ending day, and there was not. The hood was closed, and there was not anybody around it, and the car was filthy just because people leaving at the end of the night.
Sure.
And there wasn't one person standing. I mean, this was probably 5, 6 o'clock at night. And I got to walk around and look at it. Getting the hood wasn't, I've seen it earlier in the day, but it was just like, people just really didn't know what that car was at first.
Right.
But again, all the magazines picked it up. You did the road tour. When did driving it across country become a thought process?
I drove to California for the first time in 1983 in a 64 Chevy 2. Well, you've probably seen it, the champagne colored one.
Okay, yeah.
It was in hot rod. It has 6-cylinder.
Yeah.
And
you had your brushed wheels with those caps on it too.
Yep. Oh, later. At first, it just had rally wheels on it.
Okay.
And the entire hood was louvered, and no door handles, no trim. And I drove it to California in '83, and in December, and hung out in California. I went to every hot rod shop you could go to, Peter Jake's and Fat Jack and Terry Hageman and Little John, and I spent a week going around to hot rod shops.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end of that week, and actually Gray Baskerville was my tour guide. He was the one telling me where to go every day. And anyway, so at the end of that week, I thought I wanted to move to California. And so I went to all the shops, talked to everybody, and then thought, if I don't do something, I'm one of those people who can't sit still.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, I got to do something or I'm going to go home. And I don't want to go home. So I ended up getting a job at Fat Jack Robinson's. And I worked there just a really short time, a couple weeks. But, and then I drove home. But having that Chevy 2 there, I mean, it was my daily car. It was whatever. But people freaked out. I mean, because it was hammered. But it was just cool as hell to drive your hot rod. So, I was already friends with Jeff Smith, and I told him what a good time I had doing that. And I said, I'll tell you what, I said, when I finish my 55, I said, I'm going to do this again. And so Jeff called me one day and he said, hey, meanwhile, the 55 had already started escalating into what it became. And Jeff said, hey, are you still going to drive your 55 to California when you get done? At that point, I'm thinking, God, I don't know. I mean, it's a pretty intense car, I mean, orange underneath and blah, blah, blah. And he said, I'll tell you what. He said, if you want to do that, he said, how about if I fly to Dayton and you and I both just drive across country in it, and Hot Rod will pay for everything. And I was like, let's do it. So we finished the car.
This is when magazines had budgets to do stuff like that.
Correct.
Yeah,
Absolutely. So we finished the car, same situation, 5 o'clock in the morning, Thursday morning. I had my friends here from Chicago, which actually 2 of them are gone, but Bob Thrash was one of them. And that last day, and my friends here were helping. Anyway, there's like 10 of us, and trying to get the car done. And it's about 6.5, 7 hour drive to DuQuoin. It took us 16 and a half hours. The car broke down every 10 minutes. And
we had one of those trips one year. Yeah, that's when we decided we could drive our 54. Like you were saying, the drag guys driving a drag car. We headed out. DuQuoin was normally 6 hour drive,
6.5,
and it took us. That was the year
12.
we were going to Rocky Robertson. Used to have a kickoff party at his house in Albers there, and it took us 14 hours to get to Rocky's. I blew up my tow vehicle about an hour and 20 minutes from home. And this was, everybody else had their, Fairgrounds Cruiser Pro Street cars. And I'm like, what are we going to do? I was like, I mean, you didn't miss DeCoin. You just did not miss DeCoin. Even years I didn't have a car down, I drove my mom's vehicle. I still had, parked it out in the middle of nowhere so you could have your cooler in there. And I go, well, you guys are going to haul my suitcases and my tools. We're going to find a friendly farmer, leave the truck and trailer at, and I'm driving to DeCoin. And I remember that everybody's, when we got there, they're like, no, there's no way you drove, our Pro Street 54 tube chassis, hammered on the ground, big block, Delordos. And everybody was, I still remember this when we left, people still weren't believing that we drove that thing. And, the parking lot where the trailer parkings were in the back of the fairgrounds of DeCoin, what I felt like there was 100 people. There was probably 10. But standing by their truck and trailers, waiting for me to load up. And I waved at everybody, following all my buddies back, my Iowa and Missouri buddies, and off we went down the
rain.
We drove on that thing in the rain. Yeah, we put 20,000 miles on that old car. So
that last, whenever Toby Brooks made DeCoin again, we went in the 55 and the Henry J the first year. And Sunday morning got up to come home, and it was pouring. And we drove the 55 and the Henry J in the rain 7 hours straight. Yep. Anyway, somebody got a picture of us. They posted it. They were like, "You think this guy don't drive his car?" I mean, pictures in the rain. So that was cool.
Yep.
But Jeff asked me about doing it, and I said, "You know what? There's no reason in the world why we can't do this." And but I guess back up to DeCoin. So it took us so long because I had never, ever driven the car, not 30 feet. We finished the car, drove to the gas station, put gas in it, took off for DeCoin. And oh my God.
It's because you built it and everything was still fresh in your head. So you knew how to fix it if you had a problem. So yeah.
We worked on it all the way there. But anyway, we were supposed to leave from DeCoin. And I got to DeCoin and told Jeff, I was like, we're not even close. There's no way. And he said, well, take it back home, get it all ironed out and call me. So I brought it home and worked on it till August. And then told Jeff I thought I was ready. And he flew out here. We jumped in it. And Dayton, Ohio is Crossroads of America, I-75, I-70. And we were on 75 headed towards 70 west. We didn't even make it that far. I looked at Jeff and I said, I'm going to tell you something. No matter what happens, no matter what, I'm the luckiest guy you ever met. He was like, okay. So we had all the adventure we did. But that story about breaking the wheel, the first wheel, we had gone.
Because those were motor flywheels. They weren't really, they were a racing wheel, weren't they? They weren't really a street wheel.
They weren't motor flies. I love motor wheels, but I wanted some changes. And real motor wheels, the fronts are magnesium.
Oh, okay.
And they weren't streetable. You'll break a motor wheel in the street. So I got the idea to have my own made, and especially at the time, what a nightmare. But I found a wheel company named Monocoque that sold race wheels.
Oh, yep.
He would sell me wheel halves. Now, what I didn't know that, and it still kills me that Dave never told me, you could get different thickness halves. But I just got the race ones and then cut a bunch of holes in them. And so that's why they broke. I mean, but because my front ones are inset from a motor wheel, they're flat. And actually, let me think. I think my rears didn't have any center hole at all. Sure, I can't remember. I know we talked about that. But anyway,
the wheels are so deep you really can't see in any of the pictures.
Right. We were they were 15 by 16. But we're going cross country, and I told Jeff that I'd never seen Bonneville. And he said, well, Bonneville was last week. And I said, well, that's cool. I'd like to see Bonneville. The racing's cool, but I'd just like to see it. And he was like, well, let's go. So we're headed down 70, and we see this quote unquote shortcut. You would take 70 to 15 north, but there was a diagonal road that was a state route excuse me, that would go from 70 up to Salt Lake. So we jumped on that, and it was the middle of nowhere, like you can't imagine, for miles and miles. But whatever. I mean, cutting along. So we made it to Salt Lake. Then from Salt Lake to Wendover was the most violent, nasty, rutted from semis road for 90 miles straight. And a pro streetcar don't like that stuff.
And there's nothing in between Salt Lake and Wendover, is there, Carrie? Because we ran out of fuel the time we went to Bonneville in the rental car, because Carrie thought that when we left Wendover, she goes, "Is there a gas station up here?" Oh, I asked her, "You got enough gas?" "Yeah." And I'm just chilling, past her seat. She's driving, and she's driving for a little bit, and I can tell her body motions. And she goes, Where is the gas station at? I go, "It's like Salt Lake. We ate at like a Denny's there when we flew in." She's like, "How long is that?" I go, "Oh, probably at least another hour." Huh. Then I noticed she kind of slowed down and started drafting semi. And I go, "Are we going to run out?" "Yep." I go, what's the countdown? And she's like, 20 miles. I was like, oh, shit. So luckily we found a rest stop, and we had food with us. Pulled over to the rest stop when it was just like down to 0 on the mileage countdown. Called AAA. I swear by AAA if you're traveling. And 40 minutes, they brought us gas, and off we went. So yeah, we kind of ran out of gas in that stretch.
Yep.
But I'm sure my wheels didn't care for that road much.
Yeah.
So we got to the flats and looked at it, and then I don't know if you've ever seen Jeff took a photograph of my car on the salt with a red lens filter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know whether it's in the article or not. I don't think it is.
Yeah, I've seen that picture though. Somebody's posted, or he's posted it, or something. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, but if you look at that photograph, look at the sky, because basically it's get the hell out of there.
Yeah, this picture's on the salt, but it doesn't have the red filter on it. But yeah, that guy's starting to get angry.
All hell was about to break loose. So we took off, and once again, excuse me, I told you I had that, whatever that is. Once again, with a diagonal shortcut. And this is literally a country road.
Mm-hmm.
And we're driving along, and unlike with Carrie, we needed gas, and there's this general store. And we pulled into the general store, and like 2 gas pumps, and like asbestos roofing shingles on the side of the building, and a screen door, and there's a big farmer looking dude standing at the screen door. He pulled up, turned the car off, and he said, "Y'all got a flat?" I said, "What?" Got out of the car, walk around, and my right front tire's flat. And I looked down, and I said, "That's not a flat, that's a broken wheel." The wheel had a big crack in it.
Mm-hmm.
So now what are you going to do? I mean, you are in the middle of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
I'll bet less than 30 seconds later, a guy pulls in behind my car in a Jeep. He gets out, and he says, "Cool car." I said, "Yeah, it's cooler when all the wheels are around." He said, "Well, what?" I said, "I got a flat tire." I said, "I got a broken wheel." And he goes, "My father-in-law can weld that." And I'm thinking, yeah, sure. And I said, "Oh, yeah." I said, "Can he weld aluminum?" Being all smart ass, like, "Oh, yeah." And he says, "Yep, that's what he does for a living." He said, "See all those sprinkler systems over there in that field?" He said he built all those. I said, "Really?" I said, "Where's your father-in-law?" He goes, right behind the store." I looked at Jeff, and I said, "What did I tell you?" Pulled the wheel off, took it behind the store, and the guy welded it. But it didn't hold, but here nor there. But yeah, the stories, that whole trip, Jeff could only print so much.
It says the wheel cracked again in 20 miles.
Yeah, it did. So we spent the night in the car.
So does Jeff snore when he sleeps in the car?
I don't know about in the car, but there one time in particular, because first of all, let's back up. Everyone snores, Tim. Everyone. Yes. Everyone. But anyway.
I don't think I do because I don't sleep sound enough because of this one snoring. Yeah, anyway.
I'm a motorcycle.
Yeah.
Everyone. There are no exceptions. Don't forget it. Anyway, I went to Detroit to tune the 57 fuel injection one time. Drove up there to digital fuel injection.
Mm-hmm.
John Meany and Joe Meany, and Jeff happened to be there. And so Jeff was like, "Man, spend the night. We'll go to dinner and blah blah blah. You can stay in my room." He snored so loud I could not sleep at all. But no, I don't recall it in the car so much. I think I was in the back seat.
So how did you finally get the wheel to hold air? Did you change wheels or to get to California?
I went and bought steel wheels. Went and bought 15 by 6-inch steel wheels at a junkyard. Put Volkswagen tires on them. I think there's a photograph there with the steel wheels on it somewhere.
Yeah, I don't know. Not in this art. Not in these. I got both the article pages out, but it's part 2.
Yeah,
that one you can. Yeah, that picture you can kind of see that there's steel wheels on there. Yeah, there's a couple there. Yeah. And then when you went to the drag strip, there's welds on the front.
Correct. Rich Smith sent me wheels.
So you get to California in this with all the troubles, and then you changed rear end gears, didn't you?
To race it, yes.
Yeah, and then you ran a 1091 at 129 mile an hour after driving this thing across country.
It was actually 1081, and Jeff Smith, Mr. Goody Two Shoes, didn't want to promote an unsafe practice such as having a 10-second car with no roll cage.
No, so yeah.
Said, I'll just put 1090, and I was like, "Come on!" But and actually, the better part of that, for what it's worth, there was a pro stock guy named Ken Thurm, and I met him out there, and he was supposed to join us when we raced the car because he was smarter than us. But anyway, he was so smart that he knew not to go because it was like 95 degrees and 100% humidity and terrible. But we went and did everything we did with the car, and we made a lot of passes. But Hot Rod rented the track. So, I mean, like we changed just the carburetor on the starting line, just messing around. But anyway, it went 11 teens and 127. And I went up the tower to get the ticket, and it was the owner's wife running the clocks. And she said, "Did Bernie say anything to you about going faster than 120 without a roll cage?" And I said, "No, he never said anything. He just said not faster than 10 seconds. He said, but the mile an hour never said anything." She said, "Okay." And the next pass was 1081 and 131. And I looked at the ticket, and because all I wanted was to say that I went 10 seconds.
Mm-hmm.
And so I looked at the ticket, and I was like, "Thank you. See you later."
Yeah.
The last pass. But we went and showed Ken Thurm everything and talked to him about it. He said, because of the 131, he said that car would go in the 9s. And again, I'm not a drag racer. I don't know all this stuff so much. But he said, we had a 14-inch wide slick on it. He said,
and it's a column shift car, right?
Correct.
So you're low, and then that's not racing normal racing stuff to shift column shift.
Nitrous button on a guitar cord. You plug it in, you just have to hold it.
Yeah.
But Ken said if you launched the nitrous from the starting line, which we didn't, and you had a 16-inch tire instead of a 14-inch tire, and then the final thing was adjust the 4-link. You could run faster than that car and lead the starting line. The top 4-link bar needed the front moved up, and it was 95 degrees, and we knew it. And we were like, I'm not crawling underneath there. It's just too hot.
Yeah.
So, but again, we achieved what we needed to do, because if they weren't going to let you go 10s, they definitely weren't going to let you go 9s.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah, and that was a Lingenfelder big block, right?
Correct.
What was it?
I had bought a new LS6 from Chevrolet, and I wanted the Edelbrock, I think, intake where the carburetor is slightly sideways,
Mm-hmm.
and I wanted a super thumpy camshaft. And I called John as per Jeff's instruction and told him what I wanted. And before that conversation was over, I was taking John my motor. And then he basically threw away everything but the block. It's got scat crank in it and pistons, and it's a 496.
And Lingenfelder, we did a motor for a vehicle for Royal Purple, and Lingenfelder did the LS motor in it.
Right.
And when I did me and my dad's 65 Chevelle, I tried to get them to build me a big block for it. And they're like, nope, we don't do big blocks anymore.
Yeah.
Of course, John's passed away, and it's Ken Lingenfelder. But yeah, Lingenfelder won't do you a big block anymore.
Right. Well, when I was building the 54, the Power Tour was going through Dayton, and years ago, and the 54 was supposed to be gray primer, and it had a Paxton supercharged small block Chevy and a 700R, and I wanted all the trim to be real nice, and I wanted all the chrome to be real nice. Again, gray primer, and cool set of wheels. Basically, it was going to be tubbed like it is, the 10-inch rim and blah, blah, blah. And Power Tour went through Dayton, and so, God, I want to say it was John McGann. Somebody called me and said, hey, it was raining that morning. And they said, let's all just meet at your house. Not the whole Power Tour, just the hot rod guys. But let's just hang out until it quits raining. So a guy came with them that worked at Lingenfelder's. Excuse me. And he said, we'd like to supply you with all your engines from now on for all your projects. And I said, okay. And I said, but you want to do LS motors? And he said, correct. And I said, okay, here's the deal. I said, when John was alive, he tolerated my artsy, I want to do this, I want to do that. Excuse me, I told you. Actually, it's too bad I don't have something to drink. Anyway, he said, I said, you need to be able to work with me. I mean, John, if I'd ask him about something weird, he'd be like, yeah, go ahead and do that. Yeah, you can do that. And I said, you need to be able to work with me because an LS motor is disgusting. And I said, and I'm going to have to figure out a way to make that work. So they left. I acquired a LS block, converted my car to LS, got the idea to use the 409 valve covers, blah, 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 and made all that up. And then the general manager of Lingenfelder's got changed to someone else, and they shit-canned every project, including me. So now I'm stuck with an LS-powered blah, blah, blah that I don't have a motor for. So I called Scott and Nicky Chevrolet, and they gave me a really good deal on a 427. And I love my 427 LS motor, but really hope that I have no intention of putting LS motors and everything I own.
Yeah.
One's enough.
Yeah, I like them, but I'm keeping my OBS truck small block powered. So yeah, I'm not. I like them. We put 20,000 miles on that thing too. The Royal Purple truck with the Lingenfelder LS in it, and I'm not one of them that now everybody says you got to LS swap the world. I still like small blocks and 283s and 327s. And
since doing that car, I did the Firebird. He had a 455 Pontiac motor. Did the 61. He had a 409. What else have I done? But I've been lucky that I haven't had to live that.
Yeah.
And again, I couldn't be happier with my 427.
Yeah.
But I just don't want to do the same thing all the time.
Yeah. So, okay, we're kind of jumping around a little bit. After the 55, did you drive that thing? That's what a question I'm always. Did you drive it back home, or did you ship it after that? After being gone on the road too long?
I drove from LA to the SEMA show, and then put it in the SEMA show.
Okay.
And then drove from the SEMA show home. And actually, I was just telling somebody the other day, it got brought up. When I drove home from the SEMA show, now you're into November.
Mm-hmm.
And from St. Louis all the way to Dayton,
Mm-hmm.
there was more than an inch thick of ice on my bra in front. We were driving in the sleet, rain, snow, blah, blah, blah. I couldn't check my oil because the bra was frozen in the front of the car. And also, there's no heater or wipers in that car.
Yeah.
And we discovered that, you know, those coffee machines that sell hot coffee and hot chocolate, and it's scalding hot, especially back then. We just bought one of those and put it between our legs. And if your naughty parts are warm, the rest of your is fine.
That's awesome.
It worked perfectly. It's like, I don't feel so bad now.
That's awesome.
Me, when my toes get cold, I'm over it by then. So, okay, what was after the 55? Then in magazines, you started building a lot of stuff. You built a giveaway. Was the Thunderbolt a giveaway car?
Yeah.
And then, like the very next issue after part 2 of the Pro Interstate, you did this motor build. I'm trying to figure out.
While I was there.
Yeah.
I did that at Jeff's house.
See, look how cool you LS youngsters. Look how cool that small block is. All clean and detailed.
Even then, so we paid a machinist to do that Scott's thing on there.
Mm-hmm.
It was supposed to be an inch and a half tall down at the bottom.
And
he did those valve covers. I was like, oh my God, that's a little overkill. But too late now.
Yep. They had a little John water pump on it. I allegedly have a few of those and the motor mounts, and we did that on your Speed Star.
I have a water pump with no motor mounts.
Yeah. I have a set of water pumps, 2 water pumps, and a water pump. I don't have a water pump to go with my motor mount timing chain cover, I guess, but I allegedly know a guy that might let a set go.
Well, one of the things that's frightening about that, though, I mean, seriously, if you have it and then something blows up out on the road, well, come on. Coming? It's all the way up here.
Turbo still in there.
Yeah, ours are both passed out. They were snoring so loud just a minute ago. I thought one of them was crying. I had
Which
to
one
go
was
check on
snoring?
it. Turbo.
Was he really?
Mm-hmm. They're out.
Yeah, we've had this big, huge bean bag we bought for our cats. So we're cat people. People listen to this. And he's had it for years, and he was scared of it. Like, you couldn't even hold him and sit in it. Now in the last month, it's his new favorite spot. So he's been there all afternoon just down in the little burrow.
That's because I decided I was going to get rid of it. I was tired of it laying around and not getting used. I moved in there and like, okay, I'm getting rid of this. The next day, the cat's in it.
Yeah.
So.
Well, there's friends of mine bought this, I don't know what you call them things. It's like a tower, and it's got a bunch of levels. They bought it for my cat, and I was like, oh, Christ. Put it in the middle of my living room, and she'd used the crap out of it. And then, long story short, she was a feral cat, and when she was discovered, but anyway, she got out of the house one night and was gone about 36 hours. And she finally came back, but ever since then, she doesn't use that tower thing.
Huh.
It's got to be their idea.
It's got to be their idea. Yeah, you can't force them to do anything. It's like a wife.
Yeah. Well, there are. Well, I don't know. I've never been married.
So since we're on the whole cat thing, have you ever been to a cat show?
No.
You need to go because they are fun.
That's entertaining. We're upset. We have to be in Illinois. My dad's getting a new knee between Christmas and New Year's, so we're missing We're missing the cat show.
We are.
Yeah.
Well,
We are.
and that would be one of those things that I suspect I would never look at my friends and go, "Let's go to a cat show."
No.
The girl that this cat came from, she might.
It's just very entertaining.
There's all walks of life of people there, and everybody's having fun. And we talked about this on one of our other podcasts, and it's like, you remember like the 80s, early 90s ISCA show people where they get kind of dressed up in their fringe jackets for the awards and stuff like that? You know what I'm talking about, right?
And match their car.
That's where those people are now, I think, cat people, because the costumes and the outfits. So it's way easier to haul a cat around than it is a show car. So I think if they retired from ISCA indoor show circuit, now they're cat showing. That's our philosophy on it. So, okay, let's talk about some of these projects you got to do for the magazines and stuff. You did the Thunderbolt was shortly after the 55, wasn't it?
90.
And then you drove that one. Was that the first ever Hot Rod Power Tour that you drove that car on?
Yeah, yes, it was.
And that's when they did, Carrie works registration at Power Tour. Now people know Hot Rod Power Tour as it's in a region. They drive at 5 hours or something every day. They get to do tourist stuff and scenic country routes. You guys road dog. Where did that first Power Tour? It went to Vegas, right? To the SEMA show. Did it start?
I think it was Indy to Vegas.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
People would die now if they had to go that far.
Yeah,
There weren't, it was Troy and I, and
I just seen that magazine. Troy was in his 60. Is it Johnny Young was in the Peach delivery, the Nash delivery?
yeah, which he wasn't on it. He must have just joined. He joined for a minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah, which that car disappeared, and his grandson just bought it back. He had it at the Tulsa Indoor Show last year, so it's back in the family, and it still looks good. It was cool to see that car again.
I always liked that car. Yeah,
Yeah,
really cool.
and there was a few other heavy hitters on that trip. I just thumbed through the magazine the other day and seen that road trip.
That's a story. So Bob Thrash and I, John Spreitzer, with the red truck,
Mm-hmm.
and Gray Baskerville. And
Was Thrash working for Troy still then?
no, he hadn't started with Troy yet.
Oh, okay.
Thrash started working for Troy because Troy asked me to do artwork on the Buick. And I went to do artwork on the Buick and took Bob with me. And
Where was Bob originally from? Was he from your area?
no, he's from Troy's area.
Oh, okay.
Not far from Troy. So they ended up off they went. But so we had the Thunderbolt, Baby Bolt, and then I had a unchopped 32 3-window. And so John Spreitzer drove it, and Gray rode with him, or Bob rode with me in the Thunderbolt, and we switched back and forth. But at one point, I think Thrash and John Spreitzer were in the Thunderbolt, and Gray and I were in the 32. And, Gray's been through a lot. And I think he was terrified because we basically were racing to the next town.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we ever went below 90. And I think the whole time Gray was just going,
Yeah. So,
and then, for what it's worth, after
this was how many years Power Tour?
Pardon me?
I was trying to ask Carrie how many years Power Tour has been going on now.
The real, I don't know.
I don't remember.
30?
Has it been 30?
Almost 30. Ain't quite 30.
No. I don't know. We did an
Well,
anniversary.
Okay. Again, I think that was.
Yeah, it was 30.
I think it was 90 that I did that Thunderbolt. So you'd be 91, 92, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Okay.
That would be my guess.
Because you did the panel truck.
I did the 25th, and I drove the whole 25th. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably
Yeah, it's been 30.
yeah.
Yeah, because that was the big thing this year because we did a celebration thing and everybody was trying to do the years and said that we were wrong on
Math.
the math because of the way that it was.
I always say if you were pretty in school, you didn't have to learn math. So
Yeah. Great.
so what'd you do? What was after the Thunderbolt? What was the next big? When was Spitzer's truck? Was this about this time too? Because I still say that truck is one of my favorite. It was still Pro Street, and it had a big block in it and like Weber's on it, right?
Yep.
And then bright red and graphics on it. Man, that truck and that was about the same time. People think people building square bodies, but Boyd built a square body when they were new. I found a picture of that he had the Western wheels on it. And that was that Allison's plating square body you did the graphics on. It was Pro Street.
Yeah.
And nobody believed how low that thing was. I got pictures of that in the grass at DeCoin, and it just doesn't look like it would even go down the road. It's so hammered on the ground.
It was he figured out that you can take the cross member in front and drill out all the rivets and then sink it up into the frame and end up, with ground clearance and ride.
And what was the motor that? Did I have a tune port motor in that square body?
Yeah, I had 2 port in it.
Yeah, I thought about my OBS. I wanted to put a tune port, put the modern computer behind it, just for like trying to keep it retro. But I have to keep a carburetor or a throttle body on it because I have a set of Fat Jack Robinson air cleaner and valve covers to put on it. So I want to make sure I want to use that ball milled anodized stuff that I got from Fat Jack's son, which he's scheduled before we go to the Roadster show. His son Johnny's going to be on the podcast.
Yeah,
that'll be a good interview.
When I worked there, John was 17, I think.
Yeah,
I worked at Fat Jack's. I remember John and I were lowering the shop truck, which is a Ranger, I think a Ford Ranger. Doing the back, had the bed off of it, probably C-notch and doing whatever. Jack kept coming out of the office and yelling at John. He kept coming out and yelling and coming out and yelling. And at one point, I looked at Fat Jack, and keep in mind, I'm an Ohio kid. I ain't been there that long. I looked at Fat Jack and I said, you know what? We get something done if you go in the fucking office and stay there. He walked away, and then later, Greg Morrell worked there. He was the painter. And I said to Greg, I said, man, I might have run my mouth a little bit and pissed Jack off. And he goes, nah, he hits when he's mad. Uh-oh.
Greg Morrell, I stumbled up. He was off the day I was there. I went to that Lions Automobilia Museum in California that's got all the drag race stuff and the Willies. They have their own restoration shop there, and Greg Morrell is their paint and body guy.
Oh, really?
But he's like,
I don't know what happened to him.
He works 3 days a week. He's like 80 years old or something now.
Nah.
They said he's got to be almost 80, doesn't he?
I don't think he's any older than I am.
I know they said he was older than that.
It could be, but I didn't think he was any older than me. But the Red Henry J I did, with the droop nose, that was Greg Morrell. When I worked at Fat Jack's, I come rolling in there with my Chevy 2, and they already knew about the blue Chevy 2. So they knew, reputation. And Greg had an Anglia and a Henry J. He owned both. And, so we're instant pals for life. And we were working, and I said, and it's funny to have these observations even then. I said, the thing about a Henry J is, if the rocker panel were touching the ground, front bumper's still 6 inches away. I said, it's just the way the car's made. And Greg said, you have to droop the nose. And I said, what? And he said, droop the nose like you do on a Studebaker. And I said, if you droop the nose, the car's going to look broke. And he said, no, it won't. He goes, I'll tell you what, I'll show you. So at lunchtime, we drug his Henry J out in the parking lot and stuck the fiberglass nose on it and then drooped it down. And I thought, he's right. It looks perfect. So fast forward 1983 to 1996 or something. Guy approaches me about doing Henry J. I said, listen, there's something we got to do. It's going to be cheap, but we got to do it. So
So the Spitzer truck, what was after the Spitzer truck? We kind of jumped around a little bit. I don't remember what year the Spitzer truck was, but that was almost kind of, I don't even know when, like these articles here, when you drove your Pro Street, there were still sketch articles in here. Like not really what do they call it? Life After Pro Street. Yeah. Life After Pro Street. One's the Thunderbolt rendering is in there. There's a Beretta. There's a hot rod inspired 61 Impala bubble top that got stance like the one that you built. But yeah, 1980, that was January 89 issue that they were already thinking that.
Move along.
Yeah.
Already trying to move it along.
Yep.
I don't know. I thought of something I forgot. A car. Oh, the Black 57.
No, yeah, okay. Yeah, that one is still owned. It's in California, pretty much the same as it was by, I don't know his name, the Hot Rod Ranch. They're big. Man, I don't know how. They're great follow on social media because they're always finding these old race cars and old Tri-5s and selling stuff and putting them together. Man, they find some really cool stuff. And it's pretty cool to see that car still, same intake, everything. And that was another thing. You were known for graphics, but the only graphics was on the motor of that, and the outside had no stripes or nothing on it.
Well, but you started to ask that question earlier, and we got sidetracked. So the 55 and the 57 both, once again, from an artistic eye, putting the graphics on that car.
Mm-hmm.
The stainless trim is the graphic.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You're just going to ruin something. Or
I grew up. My first car was a 50. I'm a huge Tri-5 guy, and I want to build another 55 someday. But the graphics on that was so intricate. You had a recessed license plate and the trunk lid. How many hours did it take to do the graphics? The Scott's bow tie logo on that.
I'll tell you, it's funny you asked me, and I don't remember, but I remember that it was something like 2 hours. It was ridiculous.
I call bullshit.
I had no time. I mean, it was at the end. I needed to knock something out, and I whipped that on there, and I was like, holy shit. I mean, just boom, 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 done. And I'd forgotten about that, Tim. But yeah, it took no time to do that.
Yeah, so graphics before the Scott, they were well balanced and kind of cut and dry. And that's what we talked about, the writing and the bones and stuff. And I always thought this had the logo, it said Scott's on it, kind of like a stylized Chevy bow tie. And it had like magenta liquid in it. But the one side, it's running out of the emblem.
Right.
And I seen that and was like, that was the coolest damn thing you ever did see. And that picture in this Hot Rod magazine, it's got, you melted cheese and poured it down so it was actually Cheese Whiz orange.
No, the Cheese Whiz is real yellow.
So was that actual paint you're pouring down the car in that picture?
No, I took Cheese Whiz and red food dye, and I put Cheese Whiz in the microwave until it was liquidy, and then I kept dyeing it until it was the correct color. And when we poured that down the trunk lid, there's a belly pan.
Broke his heart.
Say that again.
When there's a belly pan on that car, and when we poured that down the trunk lid, I kept saying, Jeff, take the picture, take the picture, take the picture. When the Cheese Whiz gets down between the belly pan, I got a problem. But
yeah,
that was real Cheese Whiz. Now, and the IV in the motor.
Mm-hmm.
There's an IV of a Cheese Whiz can or a jar. That's just a clear plexiglass hose that actual cheese color or my paint color was poured into the hose.
Nowadays, you'd probably get in trouble by the craft company for using that name and everything.
We worried about that. I've thought about that a lot, even to the point that someday I actually have a Jimmy Smith T-shirt design ready to be printed, and I'm scared to put Cheese Whiz.
We had in the custom side of the world. He's from Arkansas, I think, or maybe he's down that way towards Kenny Davis. But he had a Buick that was black and white custom that he called it the Oreo, and had the Oreo logo and all that stuff and the signboards and stuff.
Right.
and he sent a picture to Oreo just to make sure he wasn't going to get in trouble.
Uh-huh.
And they loved it and sent him a shitload of Oreos and merch and all that stuff. And
You could have had Cheese Whiz for life.
Yeah. We were building a car for a guy that was a 36 Ford Hot Wheels car, the Neat Streeter. He had to stop it. His daughter got sick. But he had approval from Hot Wheels that we could use the logo in the gauges and the seats, because as long as you didn't sell merch and make money off the logo, they approved it that way.
Another little known fact, both Revell model people had talked, not to me, but had talked to Harry Ibler about doing the 55 like they did Matt and Debbie's car, and said it was too boring. Car's too boring. Didn't have a bunch of graphics all over it and stuff. And then
How many 55 Chevy models have they sold, though? Yeah.
Right. They talked about doing Hot Wheels of it, and it, neither one came about.
No.
So I feel. I mean, I'm getting over it. I've been in therapy over it for a while. But
I was close once with a car making Hot Wheels too. I'm a Hot Wheels collector, so that would be any die-cast car of something I built would just be incredible. That would be pretty awesome.
Be cool.
Yeah. Or a model, still, but they don't really do famous car models anymore. I mean, that was a big thing, like you said, Dobberton and Matt and Debbie Hayes's. Joe Nichols' Willys was done into a model. The black and red Willys that Thrash did the graphics on that car, that was made into a model.
Yeah.
Okay, we've hit the 2-hour mark.
Okay. Carrie says we've hit the 2-hour mark. So you went on a run there for a while. You did a bunch of motorcycles, and then you got the 54 done. I know of one car that I don't think we're allowed to talk about that's being done. You're gonna finish building it. And do you want to talk about your personal car that you're working on right now? I mean, you've posted pictures on social media of that.
Yeah, the big thing is the Ford is a, for lack of a better way to say, a tribute. So, I'd mentioned Mike Haley was the individual who, basically raised me as a child. And Mike had a 57 Ford Custom 300, 390, 4-speed, 3.2 barrels, no bumpers front and rear for the longest time, flat plexiglass taillights. You would think that I'd want to clone that car, and I don't. But I've always had a soft spot for 57 Fords, but all of them are rotted to the ground. All of them just rust. So I finally found one locally, and I hadn't been looking. One fell in my lap locally, and 6-cylinder 3-speed. And I thought, and I used to have daily drivers that were cool. That Chevy 2 that I talked about driving to California, I had a 76 Laguna, the chop top Chevy truck. I built them specifically to drive daily. And I hadn't done that in many, many years. And in the last few years, I'm thinking, I really don't go that many places anymore. I go to the paint store, the welding store, the metal shop, the gym, the supermarket, and that's it. So I thought maybe I'll build a daily driver. And then I was snooping around, and this 57 fell in my lap. So, again, 6-cylinder 3-speed, so I have to update all that stuff. But it's not really carried away. I don't know. People would tell me I'm carried away, but a lot of the stuff I'm not surprised that I had to do. All I wanted was an 8-inch rim and a 255 tire. I couldn't get one on it to my satisfaction. Well, if you got to cut, you might as well keep cutting. So it's got a 10-inch rim and Hoosier, 12.531. But I Z'd the frame in front. It's got Camaro spindles on it. I really had a difficult time finding a motor for it. I would have been content with just a 5.0 Mustang 302, 5-speed, and I had a hell of a time. And for the longest time, I kept saying, I'm going to put an LS motor in this just because it's the answer. I mean, it's convenient, it runs good, it's economical. People are going to hate me, but that's just the most economical thing to do.
Yeah, 10 or 15 years ago, you'd been on the phone to Angelo at Ford Racing, and he'd have helped you out with the power plant.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, exactly. And I couldn't find anywhere there to turn. Ultimately, I bought a 347 off of eBay, 410 horsepower or something like that, and put a 5-speed in it. But and my friend Mike, I'm trying to hurry along for you guys.
The 54 has a stick shift in it too, doesn't it?
It's a 6-speed. Yeah, I all of a sudden I decided everything I had to have a manual transmission. Although the wagon you were talking about won't, but most everything else I've got 5 speeds or 6 speeds. But Mike Ailey vanished from my life for a long time, and then he came back a little bit, and then he passed away in the last year and a half. But right before he passed away, we had a pretty cool heart-to-heart talk about things, because he would never be so bold as to admit, I don't know what the right word is, that he basically raised me. You know, he was too shy about it. You know, oh, stop it. He really did. But anyway, so I wanted to do the car, and then he passed away, and I thought, you know what I'm going to do? Rather than the standard pinstripe on the window, in memory of blah, 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 I got a personalized license plate that says Yaley.
Oh, cool.
So I'm going to run on it. But it's going to be a pretty cool car. I just, right now I'm fighting with, I mean, it's in a location that I can't, it's in my other building that you didn't go to, and it's cramped in there. So I need to get it sitting on the ground on the correct wheels and tires and be able to step away from it, because I'm strongly considering no bumpers. And that comes from the front bumper on a 57 doesn't bother me. The back bumper is the dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life. I mean, you'll tear your knee off walking past it. And so, you know, bumpers, if you straighten them out and have them re-chromed, that's $5,000.
Yeah.
This is supposed to be a daily driver. So
you don't plan on painting it. It's actually got actually decent patina paint on it, and you're gonna leave that.
No, it's got a 90s paint job.
Okay.
That it was restored in the 90s, and it's gray and white, and it's pretty presentable. It's not patinaed. Any patina that's happened since I've been working on it, and we're discussing more and more about painting it. But I'm not going to strip it. I'm just going to scuff it, paint the sides gray, paint the white.
She says it's going to get painted, and it's going to get stripped, and then you're going to do this, and then you're going to do this. And
the
one picture you put on social media had spindle mounts mocking up. Are you going to run spindle mounts on the front?
Yeah, those are not. They're the wheels like Endicott's got.
Okay.
The lug nuts are painted black.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to use those, yeah. And it's got 1610s in back. And actually, we were measuring. You know how the front of a hood comes down on a Ford, arcs down, and then cuts back in where it goes to the grill? That's 23 inches from the ground. This thing is laying on the pavement.
I love those too. I have artwork for one that I was trying. I was really close on 3 different cars for the late great Poteet, and he liked that. I had a '57 Ford sedan that I really wanted to build, with a lot of kind of crazy body mods that still look 57 Ford. I'd still love to build that car. That's what people don't understand. A '57 Chevy is like the Americana car, but in 1957 they sold more Fords than Chevy did the Chevys.
Somebody just told me yesterday, I blurted that fact like I know what I'm talking about. He said, you know why that is? Because Ford included the T-Bird and included the pickup trucks. And counted all the way up to December 31st, 1957. Okay. And that's why. Because I'd always heard that as well. But it's like, yeah, and they all rotted the ground.
Yeah.
But anyway, I need to get my car out and see if I can tolerate no front bumper. Because if I can, I'm going to just make a 3.5-inch push bar back.
Yeah.
A roll pan.
I vote for that.
Yeah, but the back would be great, but I don't know, because the core support hangs down, the radiator hangs down, the AC condenser will hang down. But I've already drilled my A-arms. If I do this, I'm going to chrome the A-arms because you can see them from the front.
See,
But
this driver here has begun. He's chroming suspension in his daily.
I know. And I'm thinking about that as well, because I'm thinking, again, not cheap. So I'm thinking I would.
Cody Walls must have an affordable chrome guy because he has chromed 95% of his new car.
Oh, Cody?
Yeah.
Oh, no. No, it's not affordable. He wants what he wants.
Yeah.
Well, that's the situation. I just told him the other day, just for the sake of conversation. That car is going to be amazing. And I say that because I'm not much of an East Coast, roadster guy or East Coast hot rod guy. And if you would have told me anything that he did on that car, I would have went, not for me. But
you see it as a package. It's bitching.
he's doing it so well that I'm like, I really like this.
Cody's a talented dude and a good guy too.
Yes,
I like. Yeah, I was at his shop. I seen that car in metal. I guess it was getting blown apart then. When I went out to the Good Guy show in Dover, he was about an hour or so away. So I went in early so I could go to his shop and see what he was working on. So
did you see did he show you the sedan body of his?
Yeah.
He went and bought a 32 sedan.
Yeah. And I know what he's doing with that one too. So yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait for that. So yeah, he got to talk to Daryl Starbird in depth. It would have been February at the Tulsa show about that car, details of the little coffin the first time when it still had posts in it.
Right.
That he didn't know that some of the magazines didn't show. And he's like, I can't find a picture anywhere of where the gas filler is. And he's like, well, the gas tank was in the back seat. And he goes, how did you put gas in it? And he's like, there was no side windows in it. We just literally reached the car. And Cody's blown up these pictures with a magnifying glass trying to find some hidden thing. And it was just, we just reached through the window. And Cody was like, oh, Jesus. Yeah.
That's funny and sad.
So do you still have your 40 coupe too?
I do.
Is there plans for that someday?
Well, here's the thing. I got a 40 coupe and I've got a 62 bubble top in pieces.
Okay.
Besides the Ford and the wagon, and I'm 69 and I got to eat.
Yeah.
So if you do that math, that doesn't work out.
Yeah.
But worse than that, I have two situations. I shouldn't talk about it really even, but I have two situations. One's the Red Henry J, and another is a potential Willys. And
a potential what?
A Willys.
Okay.
And I need neither. But if either of those can happen, they're going to happen. I'm doing it. But that said, I mean, let's be real here. So I intend on probably selling the bubble top. And in fact, I talked to Andy Leach about it a little bit, talked to Boris about it a little bit. But the 40 would be contingent on if I acquired that Willys, I don't want to sell the 40. Or I'm sorry, I would sell the 40. But if I didn't acquire the Willys, I'll keep it just, if I get that far.
Yeah, because the Willys is, like, it's weird that I've had that conversation with like 5 other hot rod guys recently. Right. There's like one guy's trying to buy his old, it was a glass Willys, but tube chassis car. And he's like, I want that car back. Right. And then another guy's like, oh, I got a Willys kick again. And he's also had Willys, Illinois guy. And
right. Well,
my buddy Zane has a steel Willys that he's built the chassis for and hasn't got it running. It's got a Hemi sitting in it.
Yeah, this car is a gasser, and it's actually got history. And that being said, what I really would like to do is replicate the Henry J. 10-inch rim, hammered on the ground, drive it, rowdy, small block, or whatever. But I can't believe I'm even saying it. I don't know if I have the heart to cut this. It's got an original Willys axle.
Yeah.
It's all steel. It's got a big old rear end and history. And it's like I don't know. It's got a big block Chevy in it. And I wouldn't. Somebody approached me at the Grand National last year about a blown 392 Hemi. He was like, "Hey man, you interested?" I was like, "Yeah." And so And then he's like, he's out there and he's like, I'd have no problem bringing it to Ohio. My wife's from Ohio. I can make this happen.
I know where there's probably one available in Texas.
Well,
It's a little closer to you.
yeah, this guy just flaked. He's gone. I don't know what happened. But anyway,
Does this motor that I knew about come from California? You know Brian Shepard that works for Curry?
No.
It was his buddy that had it, and a friend bought it. But that was a rebuilt, blown early Hemi.
That's probably it.
It could be the same one.
Yeah, I'll bet it is.
Yeah.
Which explains why he vanished on me.
Yeah. But I know that it's just sitting on an engine stand in a showroom right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we didn't talk money. But, I mean, if it were reasonable, I'd consider doing that in that Willys. But other than that, I don't know. I mean, it sucks to want a Willys and want it a certain way. You can't have it.
Yeah.
But, again, I don't know if I have the heart to cut that thing. But the Henry J, I actually, I have some changes in mind. Just slight, quick changes, not any big deal. But I've always loved that car. That car, I mean, I take a lot of pride. We never talked about this just now in the podcast, but I take a lot of time to make my stuff more than fun to drive. I mean, it doesn't just look good. It rides good, handles good, drives good. And the Henry J is still a Henry J. When I finished it, it was a little bouncy. And I was talking to Bob Bowder one time, and Bob said, it's the same thing as a Deuce Highboy. There's no weight behind the rear wheels. And he said, put 200 pounds in the trunk and see if that helps. And I went to my gym and I got 200-pound plates and I stuck them in the trunk, drove it around. And lo and behold, it helped a lot. I mean, it's not a Cadillac, but it helped a lot. So I ended up bolting a 196-pound plate it's an inch and a quarter thick, and it fit between the wheel tubs.
Please tell me you just use tractor weights. Did you use tractor weights?
No, it was just a chunk of steel.
We lowered some stuff with tractor weights before for SEMA projects. Yeah.
I never thought of that because I didn't grow up with that. But anyway, that car, it doesn't ride so much as good as my other stuff. It's just fun to drive. It's just fun.
Which, speaking of driving, one time, I don't know if you were out of your mind or you just got done. You said if the time comes right, you would let me drive the Cheese Whiz car.
Yeah. If that
the last time I was, it's into storage, I can't get to. He's always got excuses. I drove Project X around the fairgrounds.
Right.
And that's when I sent my dad a picture. There's two things of all the stuff. You know, I've been in 300 and some magazines. I'm in 2 Hall of Fames. I had a TV show, but no. When I sent my dad of me interviewing Jeff Lutz, the Drag Race 57 guy, and when I drove Project X, he goes, you finally made it. Those are the only 2 things that made my dad think that I was finally going to make it in the hot rod world. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that do you remember Barry Loback? The time I built my Chevy 2, I met Barry Loback and we were friends, and he had a group, mostly Cincy street riders, and Springfield. It's funny around here, Springfield and Cincinnati both had those guys can build hot rods like nobody's business. I mean, they're the shit, and not so much in Dayton. But anyway, I met all those guys, and we would go to local rod runs or whatever. And one of their philosophies was, in general, they left the keys and everything, all their cars. And so if you're walking along and you got to pee in the Porta Johns, 3 miles or whatever from where you're standing, just go grab somebody's car and take it up there. And so anyway, at 22, 23 years old, I got to drive Barry's cars, all the Cincy street ride, not all of them, but I mean, I drove a Chop 33 Ford, got Barry's 40 Coupe, the red one, just around the fairgrounds. But that's enough. That's enough to get a feel for the car.
Yep. Yeah.
And so I always loved that philosophy of, and Cheese Whiz is you get in, hit the key, put it in gear, and go. I mean, there's no tricks about it. It drives like a car. And actually, along those lines, I had it at, I think it was 95. They had some car show at Indy at the fairgrounds down, where the old Street Machine Nationals was.
Mm-hmm.
And did you know Meatball? Mark?
Oh, yeah.
Meatball was Cheese Whiz.
I knew him for 20 years before I knew his real name was Mark.
Yeah. He was Cheese Whiz maniac. He
Mm-hmm.
actually had upholstery pieces to it, in his possession. But we were at that event, and we're all hanging around, and I said, hey, Meatball, why don't you go drive the 55 around the fairgrounds? And he said, what? And I said, get in the car and drive around the fairgrounds, just make a lap. And he was like, oh, my God, I couldn't do that. And I said, why? He goes, oh, God, I'd have a heart attack. I said, dude, it's a car. Get in it, start it up, put it in gear, and go. It's no big deal. Oh, I couldn't do it. Todd Clark's wife, Tammy, I'll drive it. And his sister goes, I'll go. And I was like, go. So they took off and drove, and Meatball just sat there. I was like, dude, come on. But anyway, that's the point. If we're ever at an event where the car is, I'm not going to go get it special for you, Tim.
Yeah, I know.
Anyway, if it comes up, yeah, you can take it.
So we should wrap this up. We're sneaking up on 2.5 hours. I want to touch real quick, go back in time a little bit. Let everybody know why the 54 took so long to get it done.
Give me a hint.
The accident on the way to the upholstery shop the first time.
The car was completely finished. I forgot. See, I blocked that stuff out, man.
I would block that out too, man.
Back in therapy. The 54 was completely done, and I was taking it to Louisville, Kentucky to be upholstered. And as many people know, I don't have a truck and trailer. So if I have to do something like that, I have to rely on friends. Now, ironically, I have a lot of friends. They're like, hey, man, you need a trailer. You let me know. Hey, you need anything? Well, I need to take my car down there. And I called all my friends. Oh, gee, I'm sorry. My trailer's in storage. Hey, I can't. I got a softball game that day. Oh. So anyway, I have one friend that I've always relied on, drag racer. And he was like, yeah, no big deal. I'll bring something over. So he shows up in a Ford Expedition and a 33-foot triaxle trailer. And which, again, it wasn't what am I trying to say? Fifth wheel. It was a trailer hitch. A Ford Expedition. Expedition had, I don't know, 200, 300,000 miles on it. And I said, he opened the doors, and this is a drag race guy. So everything, all these nut and bolt bins and jack stands and jacks and drag race stuff was all screwed to the walls. He opened the door, and I thought, oh, I don't even know if I want to put my car in there.
In my mind, it's just the same as the horror movies. Yes. When they run from the killer and they go into the shed with all the knives and hay, all that stuff.
Yep. So I mean, I'm like, whoa, and I'm like, well, nothing's supposed to happen anyway. So I said, where do I put the car? I've never had a 33-foot trailer triaxle. I said, where do I put the car for tongue weight? And he said, basically just in the center on top of the wheels. Put the car on the trailer. Get on the freeway, and it starts wiggling real bad left to right immediately. So I thought, tongue weight. So I pull over and I move the car forward. I take off again, still does it. So I do that 4 or 5 times. I don't recall, but it was a lot of times. I pulled over within 6 miles. I probably pulled over 4 or 5 times. I moved the car. And finally, it just wasn't going to go away. And I thought, well, I need to just be careful. So I'm 45 miles from home, northern Cincinnati. This is Sunday afternoon, maybe 12:31 in the afternoon. And and this is a diesel, which again is odd to me. I mean, I don't know all this stuff, but 50 miles an hour is the most this thing would go. And I'm going 50 and it starts wiggling. And because of the 300,000 miles, it's going one way and I'm trying to counter steer. Just very gently trying to steer around the wiggling. Within 30 seconds, it got violent.
Mm-hmm.
And the truck basically made a hard right, and truth be told, it broke off the trailer, which I didn't know at the time. I'm busy crashing. And my friend Elaine was with me, and you know those 2.5 foot or 3 foot concrete barriers that they have.
Mm-hmm.
We were going to head on that, and I was like, and again, they talk about slow motion and all that. I was like, oh, this is not good. And we went over that like it were a curb, completely up over it onto an embankment, and then the excursion rolled on its side. And so I'm up, Elaine's down, and I'm like, you okay? And she said, yeah. So I said, where's the trailer? So I looked, the back of the truck, and all I saw was white because there was a wall we were up against. So I climb out of the truck, and the trailer had broken loose, scooted over towards that wall, and just scraped along the wall and went under a bridge. So I ran down and I opened the door, and I don't know what I expected to see, but the 54 was in there. I don't know whether I thought it was going to vanish or something, but I thought, it's fine. That's cool. It's okay. So then we went back, had to deal with the towing company, the police, the fire, the ambulance, blocking I-75. It was embarrassing. But anyway, at some point, I got the idea to go back down and look in the car again. Well, the car had broken loose in the trailer, and it hit the passenger side quarter panel, rocker, door, and front fender. I mean, the door was caved in. Oh my God, 6 inches, 3 foot by 3 foot. And all of that stuff that was on the walls, later, I'm not exaggerating, later, I took a 5-gallon, like a Home Depot bucket. I filled it half full of stuff that had come off that wall and went in through my driver's window. And it annihilated my dash, wood grain painted dash. I luckily kept my steering wheel out of the car, but the crash hurt every panel but the trunk lid and the engine compartment. I mean, the driver's side looked like somebody took a shotgun and just went down the side of the car because all the stuff hitting it. And the front bumper had to be re-chromed. The hood ornament, the door handle, stainless trim was torn up. Like I said, all of it was destroyed but the trunk lid. And I brought it home and I put it in storage for like the next day. I put it in storage for about 8 months. I wouldn't even look at it.
Yeah.
And finally, I got it out and I started looking at it. And I spent 2 weeks going out and looking at it and going, where do you start? How do you start? And I had to start inventing ways to pull body panels out, like a body shop would, but weld the stuff to the side of the car and come along. And yep, I forgot about that, Tim. Yeah, that's right.
Thanks. Yeah.
I do remember when that happened.
So sorry for bringing that memory of
That's no
the
big
money
deal.
you spent in therapy to forget about that.
It's just one of those things, though. I mean, when it happened, you're like, that didn't work. Come on, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Hoping to
man.
wake up.
Yeah.
I think we've all had something stupid like that happen. I had that that 32 four-door, that gray one I built a handful of years ago.
Yep.
I was working on it. I had to fly someplace to do an announcing gig that weekend, and then the next week it was going in a trailer to be hauled to the SEMA show. So the car was done. I'd been showing it that year, but I was just tuning the carburetors and doing a bunch of rebuffing the getting it ready to go to SEMA.
Right.
And it was running in the shop, and it had not a low car push button, a different company's shifter that you had a detent, like you pulled it towards you to get it out of gear. And the shut off and the start button was in the middle of the bottom of the dash on this little cast aluminum panel. And I reached in through the door, and I'm always one of these crazy anal about sitting in the car with your feet on the brake, even when you start, no matter how many times it'd been started. And I had it sitting there running. It was just me. I work by myself like you do. And I reached in to shut it off, and I slipped, and I popped it into reverse.
Oh.
drug with the car. It's just idling across barrel, but I got it to shut off, and the momentum and my slippery floors, I couldn't get it to stop quick enough. It slammed into a table that I had on wheels, the work table, and it looked like somebody took a big 2x4 and hit it right in the middle of the back body panel between the gas tank, which was all custom made, and the body line, and pushed it in like your door, like 6 inches. And then that table on wheels, luckily it wasn't painted, it was in primer, slammed into a 55 Chevy Cameo bed and busted the shit out of the fiberglass Cameo bed. And so I stayed up all night, got the car with heat lights and primed it. And then I painted it even before. I had a day and a half before I had to fly to my event, so I couldn't cancel that. Got it in paint, not sleeping, taking naps at the shop while I'm moving heat lights. Got it painted, come back, put the heat light back on it late Sunday night, worked through the night, cut and rubbed it, the back area and the blends. And I had to put it in a trailer, haul it up to Illinois, put it in the transport and go. And then I come back and sleep. And it was like, it was a nightmare. But yeah, we've all had stupid shit like that happen.
Yeah, that was the worst by far, for sure. And actually, the first go round, the car had sat for a lot of years in primer. And, it was all shrunk out and nice. And I stripped it with razor blades. And you're going to nick it here and there. And long story short, if you really look at that paint job, it's terrible. I mean, outside in the sun, it looks shiny, but you see stuff. And I don't know. I'm not fixing it. Screw it.
No. Drive it. Have some fun with it. So.
Have fun.
Well, anything else you want to add or touch? We've talked about what you're working on that you can talk about. Talked about we've touched a lot of stuff. So your cat has not made an appearance. Sometimes our cats, Brian Brennan has like 75 cats, and he showed his cats that night. So.
Oh yeah, Chloe was. She was here, but.
Ours are being lazy. Well, one's in here eating, but
yeah.
She was here 2 or 3 times, but she didn't jump on my lap. But and it's funny because I meant to text you and tell you when I signed up and set an hour, I basically was like, we'll just do whatever happens.
Yeah. Most of our last 5 or 6 have been over 2 hours. So yeah,
it's easy to do. I mean, shoot.
Yeah.
it is.
Can go on forever. Like I say, you got a lifetime of those stories. It's just
Yeah, we've been talking to you for a while about getting on here, so we're happy and honored that you were on here. I want to thank you for the influence through all the years. Even though you were a little intimidating when I was a young rod builder, I didn't go up and talk to the guy with the mullet and no shirt on. But when I did start talking to you, you were always cool and friendly to me, so I appreciate that. So honored to call you a friend, and it's always good to visit with you when I see you at the events. And coming up, I will see you at the Roadster Show. So allegedly, you are on the judging team for the Sloniker Award at the Grand National Roadster
I
Show.
wonder if you're going to talk about that because I don't really talk about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Kevin was talking about the fact that there are judges. They're like, I'm a Sloniker judge. I just keep my mouth shut.
He's asked me a few times if I ever want to be involved, and I have not thrown myself in that. I used to help at the Tulsa show for the $10,000 award, the Fine 9 thing, but I kind of enjoy doing it. I don't like doing it all the time, but I hear some stories of some stuff coming to the Sloniker this year, and it's going to be a tough year, man. There's some good stuff coming.
We worry about that every year, and maybe this year's the gauntlet because some of the stuff though has been, we heard about like 4 or 5, 6 contenders, and you're like, oh God, but people are backing out. Come next year, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
So it may all come out in the wash, but ultimately, in general, I will say proudly, when I was asked to do this, I was doing the Amber first, but even though I'm not a big hot dog trophy guy personally, I take pride in being objective, looking at stuff. And actually, I judged the motorcycle world, the Rat's Hole show,
Mm-hmm.
which is a big chopper show for Daytona and Sturgis. I judged it a number of times, and again, it's like, man, I can look at something I hate and be objective about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, that being said, the that one show that we talked about earlier that's north of me has become such a farce, and it's just consistently been a farce.
Yeah.
That
I think that's why so many heavy hitter cars are going out to California, the Sloniker
correct.
now.
And that was our intention. But again, the big thing is that we have a really, really good judging team or judges together, and take a lot of pride in that. And one of the things too, and I want to take credit for this. I'm not 100% sure if I'm correct, but I know I did implement some things right away. Initially, they said judging Wednesday, we had the cars presented to us, and then throughout the weekend we look at the cars, and then Saturday night at 7:00 we get together and hash out the winner. And I was like, no. We're having a meeting every day. Every day we're going to get together and see where everybody's heads are at, who sees what, blah, blah, blah. But the other thing, again, I'm not sure if I started this. Sunday night, we go up and thank the people for coming. But more importantly, do you have any questions about the judging? Is there anything you're not happy about, et cetera, et cetera? And that's a bold fucking move because people want to kill you.
Yeah.
And
I've seen grown men cry.
well, not just cry. Everybody's wanting to kick your ass.
Yeah.
And I've had a number of occasions where I go up and before you know it, you've got 8 guys standing there staring at you like, it's like you lay it out for them. Most of the time, actually, there's only been one occasion, and that person wouldn't even talk. I basically went up and said, thanks for coming. Do you have any questions? He was like, nope. And then when John Buck walked up to thank him, his response was, fuck you. And, again, if he would have talked to me, I would have told him why I didn't win. And his car was amazing. It's the coolest thing ever. But you're talking about the Sloniker. You take it seriously, and it has to be right. And the stuff that he had done was so grade school. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, dude. Just little things, but little things that you see. And so, but we've had a number of occasions. I had a guy, I walked up the second year I was judging, and I said, do you have any questions? And he said, or I said, anything you want to talk about? And he said, well, I got to be honest with you. I thought I had this thing in the bag. And I said, okay. I said, if you want me to point blank tell you what's wrong with your car, I will. And I said, but be prepared to hear it.
That's like telling somebody they got an ugly baby.
Yeah. And he said, I want to hear it. So I rattled everything off to him. And I said, don't tell me you didn't see this stuff. You built the car, for Christ's sake. And he was like, no. But one of the other things I told him too, I was like, don't take this car home and chop it up with a hacksaw or whatever. I'm like, this is it's beautiful. It just underwent the worst scrutiny it's ever going to go through.
Yeah.
I said, you're going to be a hero everywhere you go with this.
Yeah.
But
go to an outdoor show, you might be king of the world, best whatever. Yeah.
Correct. But anyway, later, one of the judges talked to the wife, who at presentation day, she was the one that made the presentation. He said all that stuff to her, and she goes, yeah, we knew it all.
We were just hoping you wouldn't see it. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Every car has a flaw. It's a matter of
there ain't no car that's perfect.
Yeah.
I don't
how
care
well
what,
they can hide it.
Yeah.
No, but again, I mean, like I said, we try really hard. We care. And God, the more and more people tell me about Detroit, the judges, none of them even own hot rods. They work at John Deere. That's what I was told. They work at John Deere. You know, there's I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I know a few of them up there that some of them do have hot rods, but not to that level. So
Right.
at least this one, I've known a lot of the guys that've been on the judging. It's not always been the same crew there. Same with where we used to do the Tulsa show. So you're getting your peers that understand what they're looking at, in my opinion. They're just like, yeah, this guy's built stuff, won stuff, been there, done that. And yeah, so.
Yeah, occasionally, though, that we do have a.
This is Axel.
This is the one that did cut my head off tonight.
This is the 1-year-old crazy cat. Carrie has a bow tie on him. Yeah.
That's funny.
So.
My cat mysteriously gained 1 million pounds, and I'm like real cautious when I pick her up. Like, oh my god, nothing.
Our 8-year-old, he's really skinny. He is diabetic and has to have medicine every day.
He's not skinny anymore.
No, he's gaining a little
He's
bit back.
gaining.
But. Okay, so we need to wrap this up because this is almost a record 2 hours and 39 minutes.
Almost,
So we want to thank Scott Sullivan for joining the Strange Motion Way podcast.
That's me. You're welcome. Thank you.
Oh, I thought we lost him there for a minute. But,
What?
so we want to thank you.
Yep.
And we'll see you at the Roadster Show.
You shall.
Yep. Carrie won't be there, but I will be
there.
Oh, well, you got to do something else.
Yeah, I'll be at King of the Hammers.
She'll be out in the desert.
I'll
with
be in
Optimal Batteries.
California, but just not there.
Well, hopefully you'll have warm weather. Every year I go there, and it's like it gains a few degrees every day until it's time to leave. Then it's really nice.
Yeah.
Last year it rained crazy
Rained like
during teardown.
crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been 37 degrees at night, and it's like I didn't come here to be cold.
Right.
You'd think that Midwestern boy, you'd be running around in a t-shirt, but
Yeah.
I'm cold when I'm there.
Yeah,
The desert cold is different.
I think Mother Nature does that while you're in California just so you keep your shirt on.
Yeah, indeed. I haven't taken it off in a long time. It's almost embarrassing to think that I'd done that, but more importantly, the mystique that creates, it's not a good thing. I just didn't care. It's like, man, I'm sorry, I'm hot, I'm sweating, whatever.
No.
Yeah, pretty famous for that.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Well, thank you,
Thank
Scott
you.
Sullivan.
Take care, you guys.
Okay, she stopped that. So this will go up
Perfect.
in what, 2 weeks?
Next week.
Next week. Yeah.
Yeah.
It goes up every. Are you still there?
Yeah.
So we put a new one up every Wednesday afternoon. This Wednesday is Jerry and Jason Slover from Pete and Jake's, and then you'll be up the next week.
Well, I haven't quite figured.
The Strange Motion Way podcast, brought to you by Royal Purple Synthetic Oils.
Royal Purple premium synthetic motor oils and high-performance chemicals have been designed to improve performance in all conditions and provide cleaner operation, better mileage, and decreased oil change frequency. That means less oil changes. With products available for your gasoline and diesel engines, Royal Purple is the obvious choice for your performance needs. Drive with Royal Purple, the synthetic expert.